What up? What up, guys? Welcome to the Transparency. This is coverage of the Brian Drake, Idaho, Dr. Moore Brian Drake case. Thank you guys for joining me. This all stemmed from my coverage of the Idaho 4 case. 4 college students at the University of Idaho were stabbed in the middle of the night on November 12th, going into the 13th, 2022. Now, back it up. March of 2020, right before COVID kind of kicked in and stuff started getting shut down, there was a chiropractor by the name of Brian Drake, spelled differently than Brian Kohlberger. He was murdered. He was working at his office in Bonners Ferry, which is North Idaho. But the way that it works in a lot of states is the Idaho or the state police, as in this case, the Idaho State Police took over. Idaho State Police, this is their reporting. This is the case number. This is your supplemental report number 43. So the Idaho State Police were involved in the Idaho 4 case. Now back it up. Idaho State Police involved in the Brian Drake case. All right. And so because of a motion that Ann Taylor filed on the behalf of Brian Kohlberger, I came across the name Gary Tolson. I wanted to look into who actually investigated, who was investigating the Idaho 4 case, because there's just been a lot of corruption going around these parts. It's something that is not new. It's been happening for a long, long time, but we're able to bring out corruption more so now than ever due to companies or nonprofits like the Innocence Project, due to the platforms like the internet and what we're able to do. YouTube has the capability for people to take a platform and turn it into the most amazing platform ever, because we're able to reach audiences that we would never be able to reach if we were just journalists and we're hoping that somebody could read our column in some small, dinky little county. No. Now, this is great because Jackson Russo says, what is the point of all of this? Moore murdered him. He led police to the murder weapon. He was only acquitted because he wasn't given proper legal representation. What a joke. And I'm so glad that you wrote that, because actually I have the proof and the facts. Whoever told you, Jackson Russo, that Moore took them to the murder weapon, there's been no murder weapon found to date.
Actually, send Lana the proof of that.
Yeah, show me that, because all I keep showing on mine, and I'm not even living in the show me state.
There was no murder weapon to this day.
To this day, there's no murder weapon. But the people in this county believe that the Idaho State Police are in possession of said murder weapon. And that's why I'm so glad that this Jackson, whoever you are, I'm so glad that you wrote in, because it's people like you that could actually help.
Yes.
Help. And that's why I'm not like going at you. I'm not upset with you. I'm so happy that you are here, child of God. We're all children of God. Now, this is what's amazing, is that I encourage you to send me what you think you have, because I have aces up my sleeve like you wouldn't believe, and I just wait for the right time to play the right things. And
also, let her know where you found it, because maybe it's the cop.
Yeah, maybe Jackson Russo actually is a cop and is like, wait a second, I need to come forward because I actually have this. I am sitting on top of a gold mine, on top of a gold mine, on top of a gold mine with this case. But literally the only reason I came across this case is because of the Idaho 4 case. So I have to talk about the Idaho 4 connection with this case, not only because it's what brought me to this case, but it has the same actors, the same state actors. How do I know this? Because I read reports and I see the name Leslie Lehman. You're like, who the hell is Leslie Lehman, Lana? Well, let me show you what I have here. What you're looking here, the Drake 2018, this is the file. And what I have provided for all of you people is one of the most amazing. We're talking perfectly put together every single supplemental report and what it means and what it has, and the links of where I can find it within a discovery. This is how we operate here. So welcome to Truth and Transparency, because Hector is my co-host, Bella is my other co-host, and then all of my other co-hosts are those looking right in your face and in your screen. And that would be all the moderators and all of you guys subscribers and all of you guys that are members. This is a team effort. You are watching a live investigation into the murder of Brian Drake and showing the parallels of that investigation in 2020 and how it mirrors the investigation into 2022's Idaho 4. And I have said this numerous times to all of the families that are involved. Please watch not my Idaho 4 coverage, watch my Brian Drake coverage. I need you guys to possess some of the material, okay? I want you guys to have the material that I have in terms of these are the people that are investigating your kid's case. This is how they operate. This is what they're known for. Now, getting back to why we're here, which is the night of the murder of Brian Drake. If you were to go through every single report that was presented by the Idaho State Police, you will see that this murder that happened on the 12th at approximately, the state says 7:25. I say more like 6:55, 7:05. Now, what's interesting though is you would think that there would be a lot of police reports that have to do with the 13th, which is the next day, the 14th, which is the day after the next day, and the 15th. So you would think that there would be a hell of a lot of police reports of what they are doing on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Now, I hate to break this to you guys, but there are no police reports in the discovery, the criminal discovery, that was provided to Jennifer Drake as well as Dan Moore. Wait, Lana, say that again? Yeah. There are no reports that are dated for the 14th or 15th in discovery. Wait, what were they doing? What were the police doing on the 14th and 15th? Well, your guess is as good as mine because I don't know. I don't know because I don't have any reports. But that's hella important. You want to know why? I'll tell you why that's important. Supplemental 1 is Van Leuven assigning roles to people, okay? And Van Leuven was the lead from the ISP. And he says that right here, I want you guys to take a look. As he was briefing who he was briefing, we then get to this portion at 12:35 p.m. ISP detectives, I'll make this bigger for you guys. This is really, really important. ISP detectives, Alderson, Lehman, Clark, Huddle, and Beach had arrived on scene by 12:35. And this is the day after the murder. I assigned them the task of canvassing the area around the crime scene and obtaining copies of any security camera footage that was available. Keyword there, was available. Members of the NIVCTF had also arrived on scene, and I briefed them as to the current status and asked them to do whatever they deemed prudent in the location of Hartman. And this would be Stephen Paul Hartman, the first suspect in this case. Now, the reason that this is really, really important is that timestamp is because immediately what happens after that, they were told to go and canvass and get cameras. So my question is, why are there no reports in evidence to this day within discovery of any? You decided to turn it up. Don't know what I'm turning up, but I'm here for it. We have no reports. We have no idea what these investigators did on the 13th, 14th, and 15th, besides two tasks on the 13th, which is they talked to Isach Funderberg and Aaliyah Sandlin, who were the eyewitnesses. And then they were detaining, totally fucking illegally, Stephen Hartman, okay, who is actually a huge, huge eyewitness in this case because of the timestamps of things. His phone that Hartman had on him, on his person, who he encounters during his walk while he was in the area, and then Aaliyah Sandlin and Isach Funderberg, and they quote unquote what they saw and actually when they saw it. Now, let's take a look. On the day after the murders, Aaliyah Sandlin and Isach Funderberg were interviewed together at the same apartment that they reside in with two ISP officers, Lehman and Alderson. Lehman is the one that is also part of the Idaho 4 case, as they said, hey, any businesses, if you guys have video footage or residential areas and you have footage, please send that to Leslie Lehman. And when I saw that shit, I about barfed. Barfed, like literally threw up in my mouth and had to take. This episode is sponsored by Brewdog Elvis Juice. You know why I'm drinking this? Because we are supporting Richard Allen, and we believe that none other than Elvis Fields has a lot of print information. So cheers to you, Elvis, and here's your juice. Also, Brewdog is one of my sponsors in trivia, and they are a local brewery here in Columbus, Ohio, and I support them. So thank you guys. Now, I will go toe-to-toe with any motherfucker in this country to say this world of what I think I can prove. Not what I think I know, but what I think I can prove through actual physical discovery that was provided to Jennifer Drake for a civil suit. She was provided the entire criminal discovery. I've never seen something like that in my life. So correct me if I'm wrong if you guys have ever seen that a criminal discovery that is on an ongoing investigation has ever been provided to the wife of a main suspect. Jennifer Drake, being the wife of Brian Drake, is 100% a suspect in this case. Have you guys ever heard of such a thing? Can you guys believe if Peterson was given the criminal discovery of Lacey Peterson's case? That's just asinine, right? Don't you think that'd be crazy? No, perfect. You guys said that all of the inconsistencies that happened in the Scott Peterson case when he would speak, well, guess what? Those are equivalent to what Jennifer Drake has spoken. There's so many inconsistencies, or I guess you could say, when I use the word inconsistencies, you give a statement, and the next time you give a statement to the same question, it's different. Does that make sense? I like to try to take it as layman as possible. Now, everything in this case revolves around the time of the murder, just like every case should be the time of the crime, right? Not technically when the person died, because you could actually wait and bleed out 10 hours later, okay? Or you could actually be picked up by, like for John O'Keefe's sake, in the Karen Reed case, he was picked up, put in an ambulance, was still alive, and didn't die until he was at the hospital, okay? So is the time of the crime when he died at the hospital? Because no. The time of the crime is when something physically was done that is ultimately responsible for then the demise of that person. Now, the biggest thing that needs to be talked about in this case is that the state has a theory that the time of the crime is at 7:26 p.m. Now, this is very important. And so I'm going to explain this, again, in the best layman terms possible, which is via Hector the projector. So here we go. This is state. And they say that this crime was at 7:26 p.m. And now, okay. And then you have to ask yourselves, okay, why are you saying that it's at 7? Did somebody witness this crime? Is there a witness? No, to the actual crime No. This would be eyewitness. I'll put a nice little I here. Is there an eyewitness? No. Is there a hearsay witness? Yes. And that would be Jen Drake. Okay. Now, is there a hearsay witness with shots? Yes. And there's actually two. And that is Isach Funderberg. So we're going to use IF and Aaliyah Sandelin. Okay. So this is Brian Drake. So is there a physical eyewitness that I raise my hand and say, I saw Brian Drake get shot? No, there is no eyewitness. Okay, so no. Are there hearsay witnesses? Yes, there are. And there's actually three of them. One who is Jennifer Drake, who was on the phone with her husband. She's saying at the time of the crime, when he was shot. Now, the other two people are hearsay witnesses, which is Isach Funderberg, Aaliyah Sandelin. And they say that they live across the street and heard gunshots. Okay. So here's Brian Drake's office. Here's theirs. He was standing here. She was inside. He had a full-on view of this window right here. Just so you guys see. Because he was at the car changing a license plate, allegedly. He heard the shot. Then he sees some guy running from behind, coming from behind the building this way, though. Okay. And then this is the main street because they're across the street. And then what he does is he comes out and around, and then there's this other building here. And then he runs back behind there. And then there's this alley road here called El Paso Street. Okay. And so Isach Funderberg says that he hears this gunshot. His wife comes out, her fiance comes out, which is right here, and they look at each other. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? And then they both witness this part of it, they say, which is the guy running from back behind around the glass building and going towards what they call an A-frame building. Okay. Just trying to help everybody understand this. So then what we have here is Jennifer Drake shows her phone records, and she says that Brian called her at 7:17 p.m. and that it lasted till 7:20. It lasted 9 minutes and 15 seconds. Okay. And that after she had to hang up the phone, and then she called the police. But she called 911 because she was at her home in Hayden. So she was in a different county. So when she calls 911, it's at this, other county, and which is called Kootenai County. Okay. It's where Ann Taylor's office is. It's right by there. So Jen Drake calls 911. They then patch her to the next county over, which is Bonner County. Okay. And then Bonner County transfers her one more county over to Boundary County. Because people would think that Bonner's Ferry is actually in Bonner County, but Boundary is actually where Bonner's Ferry is. Because literally on the boundary, here's Canada, here's Bonner's Ferry. Literally, if you want to go smuggle drugs, you go watch Kid Cannabis on Netflix or whatever streaming it is. So just so you guys understand. And then eventually then they're saying that, oh, but wait, this Isach Funderberg guy, he called 911 too, and that his actually came in before Jennifer Drake's because of the patching on through. And I'm taking it right here from at the time, it was a filed under seal probable cause, affidavit of probable cause, State of Idaho versus Daniel Lee Moore. And I want you guys to see the exact wording straight from the probable cause. Dr. Drake's wife Jennifer called him at 6:42 from their home in Hayden. They're making that known. It was routine for Dr. Drake and his wife to have a telephone conversation on the nights he stayed in Bonners Ferry. He advised her he was seeing late patients who were still there and would call her when he was finished. These patients were later identified as Eldora Gatchell, a longtime and regular patient of Dr. Drake, as well as Gatchell's brother, Caleb Kakoa Nazara, who was visiting from Hawaii. Now, I was able to determine in my investigation that they claim that there was 2 appointments during that time, of which Eldora Gatchell arrived, and I can prove what time she arrived because I went through all the surveillance cameras and found Eldora's her pilot vehicle. And so therefore, I see her pilot crossing over Columbia Bank cameras at 6:03 and 50 seconds, and therefore arriving then just 45 seconds later at Dr. Drake's office. Now, Dr. Drake's chiropractic visits would last for 15 minutes per appointment, unless you were a new patient, in which if you are a new patient, you have to fill out a new patient form. Okay. I went through the entire discovery and there is no new patient form, none, okay, for Caleb Kakoa Nazara. Okay, none. Not only is there no new patient form, there is no payment for said new person. And more importantly, Dr. Drake never took it out of Eldora's payment on her chart. Okay, the way that he kept track. So I went ahead and double checked all of this, which the ISP never did. Okay. And if they would have, they would actually want to check and see that for this new patient, Dr. Drake always does. So it looks like this. If you have a patient at 6, then there says 6:15, then it would say 6:30 on the line, then it says 6:45, then it says 7 like that. Okay. And what he does is he writes your name. And if you're a new patient, in parentheses, it says new patient. And he always at least holds 2 spots for you to give you 30 minutes. Some people, depending on if they're elderly, he gives 45 minutes because he took time with his patients to get to know them on their first visit, because he has to do an intake form and he has to like mark your chart and know everything about you. Okay. Then he works on you and he maybe explains some things. So if he's doing his job, he is going to set aside, boom, 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 30 to 45 minutes per that new patient. I went back and checked his charts from all the way from 2015 to 2000 and present day on how he worked. Okay. And this is what you would do. And in order to be an upstanding chiropractor with your license, you need to chart this type of shit. So was there anything to do with Eldora's brother? Absolutely not. 100% no. No payment taken from him, and not even as so much as you see. What you see here is you see Eldora has that last spot at 6, okay? And then he writes next to her that she paid the $250 and he put it in pen. And we'll get all of that way down later. But I'm just letting you know. So the first thing that I went ahead and looked at is why would Eldora Gatchell get there at 6:05 p.m. and be there until 7:17 p.m.? That's a long ass time to be with your chiropractor that spends no more than 15 minutes per session with somebody. And then by the time you would walk out to your car, get in your car and leave, we're looking at 20 minutes that you're there from the time that you arrive and the time that you leave. Now, if he was late with other patient, then of course, but from the moment that your appointment's going to start, it's 15 minutes, and he was squeezing you in. So now going back here to right here. Now at 6:42 is when this call, Jen's phone calls Brian's phone. That call lasted 13 seconds. After being seen by Dr. Drake, Gatchel and Nazara reported seeing a white large pickup truck stop in the drive-thru between the two buildings. Now, just so you guys that pay attention to the Brian Kohlberger affidavit, this white vehicle, okay, was actually reported as being a two-toned, multi-color, not just a white truck. So you have your ISP guy leaving out the actual details of this truck. It was also said in the recordings that Eldora Gatchel believed that it was the truck of the guy that was there earlier when her car arrived, that it looked like it was the same Ford white truck. Now, Dr. Moore has a white Tundra, okay? And now this is when you want to take a look and you want to compare probable cause affidavits. Okay. Oh, that white Elantra, right? This is why this is so amazing, guys. Listen up. They're pushing that white truck that Eldora Gatchel does not describe like Dr. Moore's, but they're trying to push it off as it was, just like in the Idaho 4 case, they're trying to push off that this white sedan at the time of this was Brian Kohlberger's, okay? You guys see those similarities right there? All right, now, they claim here, right, that now what I was able to do is I was able to clock. Now check how crazy this is. I then checked the cameras and I'm able to see a pilot leaving on the Columbia Bank cameras, and I have it that the pilot is leaving and it's at 7:18 and some seconds. So that would have been after somebody could have went ahead and pressed the button to call at 7:17, and is enough time then to get into your vehicle, okay, then begin to drive from Dr. Drake's and then be seen on the Columbia Bank cameras. That phone call, when they want to say that Brian Drake made that phone call, well, there's a lot of discrepancies that will take place due to Brian Drake's phone moving all over and then being used after the 7:26 ending of the call, which they leave out. And they had this information, which would have been exculpatory for Dr. Moore. Now, Dr. Brian Drake, they say, called his wife versus saying Dr. Brian Drake cell phone called Jennifer Drake's cell phone. Now, Mrs. Drake was at their shared residence. Again, they are reiterating this in Hayden, Kootenai County, Idaho, at the time of this call. After discussing routine family issues for several minutes, Mrs. Drake said her husband exclaimed that someone had struck him in the side. He then said, again, this is where it's hearsay. The only evidence we have that Brian Drake was shot at this time and this manner is Jennifer Drake's own words. There is no scientific or crime scene evidence that supports this statement. You guys understand that? Now, right here that someone had shot him through the window. Well, I have a big thing to announce to all of you guys. But Brian Drake was not shot through any motherfucking window. And in fact, the shot that went through the window, that's not the kill shot. And it came from inside, not outside. It came from inside, and it wasn't the kill shot. You want to know why? How I know this? Because of science. Number one. But number two, Brian Drake's bullet that was inside of him, as the autopsy would then later confirm, that it was a perfectly shaped bullet. Almost like the JFK, just so perfect. So cute looking bullet. It came at not a downward angle trajectory shot, but in fact, the autopsy and Sally Aiken, who is just recently retired, it came at an upward angle, which totally clashes with law enforcement's assertions of this part right here. Dr. Drake, Miss Drake hung up to call 911 after a short period of time. And I said, what time? Why can't they say what time it was? Well, because guess what, guys? Right here, your girl has done FOIA requests to find out, because I knew that it was not on her cell phone. She claimed that she called 911. She hung up. Oh my God, I gotta go. I gotta call my husband. I gotta call 911. Well, the 911 call, guys, can you believe this? It did not originate from her cell phone. And she told the police that the only phone that she used was that cell phone. Wait, how can that be possible, Lana? Well, it's very possible. She just didn't use her cell phone to call 911. Wait, but there's these 911 calls that we've heard. Well, now that's a very interesting question right there, because Kootenai County says that they do not have a 911 call or an incoming call from Jennifer Drake. None of that record exists. And I said, so then how did Van Liffen get a copy of a call that doesn't exist in the county records? Oh, we're going to have some questions here about custody and chain of it. How would Van Liffen, the detective in this case, possibly obtain a 911 call that the own dispatch don't have? Yep, you guys heard that right. Also, what I was able to prove in past episodes is that while she was on the phone with 911, who, remember, it got transferred from Kootenai County then to Bonner County. Well, I was able to contact Bonner County and do a huge FOIA request, which I was given information through that, because it is 100% our right to know. In that, I found out that Bonner County was totally questioning this caller, and I spoke with them myself, Tiffany, and she stated that, yeah, that call actually came and hit one of our towers. That's why we got the call. That's why we were really confused about why Kootenai County 911 is saying that they transferred the call. To this day, Kootenai County 911 has no records of Jennifer Drake ever calling 911. She may have. And they're just that sloppy at keeping 911. I mean, what? Okay. I don't care about that. To be honest with you, whatever. I want it to be in evidence. I want Jennifer Drake's hearsay in evidence. You know why? Because her hearsay is what will prove that, A, how in the world did Jennifer Drake even know that there was a window shot out? Because Brian Drake could have never said that to her. You know why? Because Brian Drake wasn't shot through any fucking window. So Brian Drake would then therefore not say that to you. But so then how the fuck do you know that there was even a window shot out and that was going to be the narrative? Your husband would have been standing right in front of his killer. You understand that? Because that shot didn't come from inside or outside. It came from inside. But then that shot couldn't have been the one that's in your husband, because that shot actually went through the window. So if he was standing in front of the window, and he got hit with it, it would have had to penetrate him, leaving him and his body, and then going through the window. But that's not what happened, because the only bullet in Brian Drake, or the only bullet that hit Brian Drake, is still in Brian Drake. So then it couldn't have been him standing in front of the window from inside and then penetrates him and then goes through the window. Okay. What it basically means is that it's called tampering with the scene. It's called creating a crime scene that really truly isn't the crime scene, for the purposes of to make it seem like a killing in a way that it really wasn't, that he wasn't killed. Okay. Which is going along the same storyline, which is that he had just finished a long day of work, and that this was a person in the industry of what he was involved in, chiropractic, that was so jealous of him and his non-success, because he didn't make any money, because that's going to come out in court, which how much money he was making, as he was bartering. A shit ton of his services were bartering. But Brian Drake and their tax return records will prove that Brian Drake wasn't making nowhere near the money needed to support a family of 6. Okay, now we get into the goods, which is, I like to prove stuff, because it's not about what I know, it's about what I can prove. So how do I prove what I'm saying? So Jennifer Drake says that she hung up the phone, she calls 911, and that she got patched along. When that is happening, an eyewitness named Isach Funderberg was outside of his apartment near his car when he reported hearing a gunshot from across the street. Funderberg's apartment was located directly across the street from Dr. Drake's office. Funderberg later advised he observed an adult male dressed in dark-colored clothing walking northwest from between Dr. Drake's building and a fence on the north side of the building immediately after hearing the shot. Now, he says immediately after hearing the shot. This is how I can prove it. Okay, now. So, out of all the videos I think that I've ever done, this is going to be 902 on this channel. And this by far will be the best video that I've done. Okay. So, I'll remind you one more time what Leslie was in charge of. Leslie and these people were in charge of going and getting and canvassing the area around the crime scene and obtaining copies of any security camera footage and asking them to do whatever they deemed pertinent, okay? Oh, I'm sorry. That was for the NCA, but hers was them tasking the canvas area around the crime scene and obtaining copies of any security camera footage that was available. Now, Leslie, they go and they interview Isach Funderberg and Aaliyah Sandelin, and they make their statements. And at the end, and they're in there, first of all, let me go ahead and grab my report. So I've done my own report for everything. I'll just print another one. All right. I'm going to pull up a video, or I mean a report that I've made, and I'm just going to print it again. Okay. Okay, there it is. I know, Mark, you're like, I've watched a lot of videos. Here we go. All right. So in the conversation that Isach Funderberg has with Leslie, hold on one second. Aaliyah Sandelin says that she was that Isach Funderberg went to work that next morning and he was only working a half a day, and that he was coming back home at noon so that he could help in this investigation and be available for any interviews with police personnel. Okay. Then, when Isach Funderberg said that he then went to work, Aaliyah Sandlin said that she was approached not once but twice from people that were either local law enforcement or the sheriff's, Boundary County Sheriff. So you have local law, you have local PD, Bonners Ferry local PD, just like you would have in Moscow local PD. And then you have the Latah County Sheriff's Department. Okay. So you have the Boundary County Sheriff's Department and Bonners Ferry local PD. Aaliyah Sandlin said that she was visited twice, not once, but twice that morning. And it was to show her who they deemed and thought was the suspect. Okay. And when she was showed this, according to the police, it was on accident because they were just asking her a question. And then she saw the printout and she's like, oh, that's him. That's the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy. And you wouldn't believe this, but the picture was of Stephen Hartman, and he was the actual guy that was on the same side of the street as them, not the guy that was running through and around the building, not the suspicious guy after the gunshots. They came back a second time to say, oh, hey, I forgot to have you sign this. Can you sign this and initial the picture and timestamp it when we were here earlier? None of that stuff is in discovery to this day. That just doesn't exist. Aaliyah Sandlin and this whole thing of picking out Stephen Hartman and that he was the first suspect, even though this was used to get to detain this man. Okay. So this is my Truth and Transparency Revised Independent Investigator Report. I did a first copy on January 16th. I did a second copy revised April 9th. Suspect Daniel Lee Moore, victim Brian Stephen Drake. Please compare the updated information. New discoveries. The time of the crime for the murder of Brian Drake was purposefully misrepresented by law enforcement. Law enforcement knew this important material factual detail and with reckless disregard for the truth, ignored it and suppressed said evidence that proves this material fact to be exculpatory in nature to defendant Daniel Lee Moore. Now, before Leslie Lehman and Rich Alderson leave the Funderberg Sandlin residence, they ask Aaliyah, anything else that you saw that you talked to? And she's like, well, yeah, we talked to this guy that came up, but he has nothing to do with it. Isaac asked him if he had heard the gunshots, but he has nothing. And then they cut her off. Excuse me. And Rich Alderson says, wait, why do you believe that he has nothing to do with this? And Aaliyah Sandlin says, well, because when this guy walked up and talked to and was approached and everything happened, it was 30 minutes after the gunshots. 30 minutes. Okay. Now, they asked him, what was this guy wearing? He was dressed in all black, had a hoodie, may have had some headphones on. I don't know. And that was just it. But Aaliyah Sandlin says it was 30 minutes after the gunshot. Okay. And that's why she believed that this guy had absolutely nothing to do with it, because she says, and it was when all the cops were going through the neighborhoods. And I said, holy motherfucking shit. Because we have surveillance cameras that were obtained from Liberty gas station. Okay. And the Liberty camera gas station is located here. Isaac's is here. So this is the Liberty Gas. This is Isaac's and Aaliyah's. And then right here is Brian Drake's. Okay. And this is on this side of the street, and that's on that side of the street. And here's Stephen Hartman, and he's walking. But before he continues to pass Isaac's, he has a conversation with Isach Funderberg. Aaliyah was talked to at 1:20 p.m. Isaac was talked to at 12:50 p.m. in the same room. And then it went from his conversation, then she was on record. And then at 4:20 p.m., Leslie would have to call Isaac up. Why? Well, because Stephen Hartman gave he was detained. And so remember, Van Leuven said, you're going to go and do what? I'm asking these other people to go and detain Hartman. So, well, Isach Funderberg and Aaliyah Sandler are being talked to. Stephen Hartman is being talked to. And the surveillance cameras that show that Stephen Hartman is on the Liberty Camera gas station at 7:34 p.m. Okay. Which is right before and walking from this point, which would be at 7:31 p.m. Okay. He talks to Isaac at 7:31 p.m. And what Stephen Hartman says is that, oh, yeah, I talked to this dude as I was walking, back north, because this is north, that's south. As I'm walking north, I'm on this side. And there was a guy. Oh, yeah, he was a skinny guy. He had two German Shepherd dogs. And it was like a hatchback. Like it was like a Subaru hatchback, gray car, whatever. And he had pulled up and parked, and it seemed like an apartment. And then he was carrying something in, and he had asked me if I had heard the shots. And I said no. Okay, so I said no to him, and then I continued, walking. And then that's when he's seen on the Liberty Camera gas station cameras at 7:34 p.m. And so this is what he is saying in his interview that's happening simultaneously, almost just a little bit staggered, after Aaliyah is saying what she just told the motherfucking cops, which was, this guy, Stephen Hartman, why we know that he doesn't have anything to do with this is because it was 30 minutes after the gunshots. Wait a second. We have Stephen Hartman on the cameras at 7:34. You talk to him at 7:31. That means the gunshots would be at what time? 7 motherfucking o'clock. Not 7:26 p.m. Understand? Remember? Right here. The state says in the affidavit that Mrs. Drake's estimation of the time of when he stopped responding puts the time of the shooting at approximately 7:26 p.m. Woohoo! Let Lana have a field day with this shit. Okay. Okay. Well, Funderberg said that the figure reminded him of one of the clerks who worked at the Liberty gas station. Okay. He said he had dark skin. Dan Moore is as white as rice. He's vanilla. He's a white boy. White. Now, going back to this. So, Leslie says, so she gets all this information again. This is on the same day. 2 hours later, she calls up Isach Funderberg. The best part about this is that she doesn't record this conversation. This is material. This is fucking material information. Okay? And so what I did in my report is I said, we're going to go to this part of it because I'm not going to reveal some of it. Okay. Aaliyah, in her interview on 3/13/2020 with ISP Detective Leslie Lehman and Rich Alderson, stated that she had received 2 prior visits from law enforcement that morning before being interviewed by ISP Leslie Lehman and Rich Alderson. However, those encounters with law enforcement were not recorded in any capacity, nor were any reports drawn up, to include any documents signed to date by eyewitness Sandlin. Who instructed Aaliyah Sandlin to be approached and interviewed on the morning of 3/13/2020? Ready? Aaliyah's only recorded interview with ISP detective came on the this is my report, came on the afternoon of 3/13/2020 when ISP Detective Leslie Lehman and Rich Alderson visited Aaliyah and her fiance at their apartment. This interview is memorialized in a recording that was transcribed with timestamps and can be found in Discovery. However, it should be noted that ISP Detective Leslie Lehman conducted this interview with ISP Rich Alderson and Isach Funderberg all together, which is against ISP protocol. The transcription of this interview done by law enforcement and is in the criminal discovery. It clearly shows that both Isach and Aaliyah were together during both of their interviews on 3/13/2020, and that is against post protocol. Okay? Now, next. Again, this is from my report. So you have Isach Funderberg interviewed, Aaliyah Sandlin interviewed all together. Then you're having Steve Hartman being interviewed. Then at approximately 16:26 hours, which is 4:26 p.m. Right here, 4:26 p.m., Leslie Lehman made contact with eyewitness Isach Spain Ireland Funderberg. And they're trying to confuse people by doing this shit via telephone. ISP Detective Rich Alderson was in the investigations building for the Boundary County Sheriff's Department serving a detainment warrant on Stephen Hartman. I was asked to call Spain Ireland and confirm the description of the male he had made contact with. She's acting like this is the reason that she called. Okay? They record everything. Now, on the Les Schwab side, which is their side of the building, not the guy that they saw crossing and running and whatever. And she says, to confirm the description of the male he had made contact with on the Les Schwab side, which is the side that they're on, US 95, several minutes after the gunshot was heard. Ready? So this is what would have been known. Leslie Lehman, who is on the investigation of the Idaho 4, the day after the murder, within just hours of taking over this investigation, she possesses the knowledge, the information, the exculpatory fucking information of anybody that would be in the position of Dan Moore right now. She says, during my phone call to Spain, Ireland, I learned the following regarding the description of the walking male. 6 foot to 6'2". He's 6'2". Blue hoodie with a white or silver vest, sweatpants or light colored jeans. Spain, Ireland asked the male if he had heard the gun shots, plural. The male was not wearing earbuds. No, because he was wearing Beats by Dre, and you just put him down like this. Okay. Might have scruffy facial hair or a beard. Check, check. Here it is. G and H. Spain, Ireland, aka Funderberg, had just returned from the store, aka Super motherfucking 1 grocery store, where everybody said they went that day. and was standing next to his vehicle near his apartment. He had just returned from the store. This would be at 7:31 p.m. Just returned from the store. Super 1, okay, is all the way down here. Isaac's place, Liberty Camera gas station, Brian Drake's place. He talks to him at 7:31. He's seen on camera at 7:34. Okay. They're trying to say that this happened at 7:26 p.m. and that remember what is said right here, that in the probable cause, that Dr. Drake's building and a fence side of the building immediately after hearing the shot. Okay. Well, there is no way that Isach Funderberg witnessed a motherfucking thing immediately after 7:26, what they're trying to say. Okay. Because Isach Funderberg is at the Super 1 store at 7:26, 7:27, 7:28, 7:29, 7:30, up to 7:31. But he's also there way before even 7:26 even starts. Okay. Now, Spain, Ireland estimated the conversation with the male took place 10 to 15 minutes after the gunshot was heard. Now, this would be 30 minutes, according to Aaliyah Sandelin, and now it's 10 to 15 minutes, according to Isaac Spain Funderland, right? Funderberg. Regardless, 7:26 p.m., ready for this? 7:26 p.m., if you back it up 15 minutes, you're at what? 7:11. If you back it up 10, 7:16. And if you back it up 30, now. Here she comes to rock the day. Leslie, do you understand what this man just said to you? He said, well, Stephen Hartman said that Isach Funderberg was in his hatchback, silver-looking car, okay? But when he sat down with you guys, he said that I went over across the street to look for him and I took my phone so that I could take some pictures. And then when I came back, I then went to the store in my girlfriend's car, which was a white Honda Civic. So, Leslie, when you would have heard all this shit as a detective, explain to me how you don't have this man lying to you about what vehicle he was in, because now he's contradicting himself and saying, well, yeah, when I got back, I saw him immediately after responding to the store. Look it. Funderberg had just returned from the store and was standing next to his vehicle near his apartment when he had this conversation with Hartman. And in Hartman's words, Hartman says, yeah, the guy rolled up in a hatchback silver vehicle with the two dogs. Okay. And so therefore, Isaac told you he was coming back in the white car. Stephen Hartman is proving nothing but dimes for you. He has no reason to lie. He's answering it and answering it so good. And Aaliyah. So what would be your first move here, Sugar Tits? How the fuck did you get promoted to detective in 2018? Your first move would be to go to none other than Super 1 motherfucking, like you were supposed to, like you were asked to, by none other than Van Leuven, to go and get the canvas and get the damn and get the cameras. 12:35. Van Leuven says, get your fucking ass ISP Detective Alderson, Lehman, Clark, Huddle, and Beach had arrived on scene. I assigned them the task of canvassing the area around the crime scene and obtaining copies of any and all security camera footages that were available. You would go and you would get Super1 cameras. Then you would also sit that boy down. Now, this is where it gets good. This is where it's, here she comes to wreck the day. Not only did that take place, so right here, we have a huge discrepancy. We then go to none other than the video analysis supplemental 116. And in 116, it can be said that by Van Leuven, he says, Dr. Moore unlocking his truck, blah, blah. Eyewitness Isach Funderberg's vehicle can be seen driving north on Hillside Alley before doing a U-turn on Harrison Street next to Dr. Moore's office. I said, wait, excuse me? Come again? This is Van Leuven's description. Okay? Now, Dr. Moore's primary vehicle is yada, yada, yada. We get to this part. After analysis from 8 of those businesses, we observed Dr. Moore's truck driving from the direction of the residence to Millette. They go on, blah, blah, blah. Right here, though, the shooting occurs at 7:26 p.m. A human figure is then seen walking, no deer, and then running back to the area of Dr. Drake's office towards Dr. Moore's. A human figure. Remember in his little interrogation, he said that the eyewitnesses say it's you that was running back, Dr. Moore. Isach Funderberg couldn't witness anything at that time because Isach Funderberg was at none other than Super1. Okay? Now, I believe Isach Funderberg witnessed a lot, but it happened at 7 p.m. And I'm going to show you how I can prove it. Now, Dr. Moore's office, and half a minute later was the shooting. The lights on the back of Dr. Moore's truck again flashed in a manner consistent with him locking and unlocking the vehicle. Whoop, whoop. So I go ahead and I pull out this, where they want to talk about all those timestamps right here. And we get into right here. I want to show you something. $7:28 and 47 seconds. Lights flash on Moore's truck. Remember? That's what he's saying. Because it was like he was locking or unlocking, right? Now here's the best part about this. Oh, by the way, we're missing approximately 30 seconds of the video after the lights flash on and flash off. How fucking convenient that you're missing those 30 minutes. I'm sorry, those 30 seconds. See? You're missing those 30 seconds? Wait a second. But you just went ham in this lovely thing to say, eyewitness. So right here, flashing the lights, unlocking his truck using keyless entry. His truck is then seen driving back towards Millette's house, 300 feet away. Eyewitness Funderberg's vehicle can be seen driving north on Hillside Alley before doing a U-turn on Harrison. And I said, I got it. I can prove it. I said, here she comes to wreck the day. I said, I can prove it. I can prove that that's not Isach Funderberg's his car. You remember when ISP Detective Van Leuven said, go out there and you neighborhood canvas and you get these cameras. Well, I went ahead and did it my mother like myself. I call up Super1 and I said, hey, back in 2020, did you guys have cameras? Yes. Were you guys ever approached by the police to get those cameras? And I will not reveal what the answer is to that. I said, okay, thank you so much. Have a great day. After I was done getting what I needed. And then I proceeded to none other than Canvas Report 51. Not everybody is corrupt, y'all. It's not how it works in life, okay? You just try to bury the people that are actually honest. You try to bury or shy away from what their job. Well, some buddies were in charge of watching all those cameras that they obtained. Somebody was in charge of watching them. And that's why you see here, Supplemental Report 51 is the neighborhood canvas report. This was something that was assigned to Leslie Lehman to do 2 months the day after the murder. There are no reports, by the way, on the 14th and the 15th in the discovery. Not a single one of them worked on the 14th or the 15th, or were these reports all buried? Okay. Also, Isach Funderberg, nor Stephen Hartman, nor Leah Sandelin were ever questioned again after that phone call. After that phone call, and when you have this evidence of total fucking holy shit, this 19-year-old guy is lying to us, why aren't you just dragging his ass up in there? Well, when you're a 19-year-old confidential informant, you ain't dragging him up in there. That's why. Okay? But more importantly, on May 6, 2020, Idaho State Police Detective Sean Prosser, along with Idaho State Police Detective Gary Tolson, conducted a door-to-door canvass of Van Buren Street, Harrison Street, Fresno Street, Hillside Alley, and a portion of El Paso Street. On the east side, which is the side of the homicide where Dr. Drake was, of US 95 and Bonners Ferry. The canvass conducted as part of Brian Drake's homicide investigation. So what you do during a canvass, okay, is you go in the area and you're marking down who lives where, you're taking pictures of cars, okay? You're going door to door interviewing, okay? And I said to myself, who in the hell and why are they doing this 2 months later? Well, somebody was watching all of the cameras, the camera footage. Because what I was able to do is all the camera footage that I went down and showed you guys from the Liberty camera, I was like, where's this white Honda Ridgeline? Where's this red car? Who does this belong to? Who does that belong to? Like, this is just like, they did this 2 months later. All right. And then what do I see on this canvas report? Okay. Number 51. I get to the point where I see a there's all these names: owner 1, owner 2, owner 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And I'm like, okay, why are they doing this? And I'm looking at all these cars and I'm like, holy shit, these are all the cars that I saw on the Liberty Camera gas station. And I was trying to eliminate who they belong to because they were literally in the area moving around, okay, and driving around at the time of the crime, or what I deemed was the time of the crime, or right before it, And so we get to the narrative of the report. And I said, hey, Bella, have you ever heard of a 2002, what it looks like when you have a 2002, what's a Hyundai Accent two-door hatchback. What does that look like? Can you Google it? Can you pull it up for me? Because it was silver. Here she comes, the wreck the day. And I said, interesting. I said, interesting. I said, okay. Who's the owner of this vehicle? Now, please pay attention. Okay. Dan Moore goes to preliminary hearing October 2nd, 2020. He was given the criminal discovery September 24th. I'm sorry, that may have been October 26th, regardless. October 2nd, it was October 2nd. She only had a week with it, I think. Whew. All right. Jennifer Drake. Okay. Yes, by the way, hold on one second. I'll get to that too. Also, another vehicle that was noted was a Solero. And it was listed as a gold Toyota Solero two-door gold. And I said, gold? I said, gold? I said, gold with license plate gave me. Okay. I said, gold Toyota Solero two-door. Okay. Now, Jennifer Drake would bring a civil suit on November 2020 for the wrongful death and charging and going after Dr. Moore. November of 2020. We're not even, we just had a preliminary hearing. Okay. By May of 2021, all of this shit would be thrown out because it was, they didn't bring forth any other evidence against Dr. Moore other than his false confession in the preliminary hearing. So the judge is like, Buchanan's like, here's the ruling. This is inadmissible. This is a coerced confession. And it's a false, you violated his Miranda rights. And what Marty Ryan did to do this and to obtain this was condemnable. Like, you should be condemned for what you fucking did. The judge went hard. Now, I don't give a fuck about any of that. Today, what I want to care about is this. In this report and in this analysis, that is the only shred of circumstantial evidence against Dr. Moore. Okay. His phone isn't there. None of this shit. There's no digitals. There is nothing. There's no murder weapon. There's no eyewitness. And in fact, all the eyewitnesses move the time of the crime up to 7. Okay. But in Van Leuven's report, he wants to talk yet again about eyewitness Funderberg's vehicle being that at 7:28 and odd seconds, being that the vehicle that's on that hillside that turns around, okay, because he was out looking for the guy to take a picture of the guy. Okay. No, Isach Funderberg was at Super1. Isach Funderberg told Leslie Lehman that he was at and coming from Super1. I had just returned from the store when I had met Stephen Hartman. Stephen Hartman is 100% seen on cameras that is past his residence at 7:34. Okay. So, and you can just walk and see how long it takes you to walk from the Liberty Camera gas stations to Isach Funderberg's. But more importantly, when he had ran into him, according to Leah Sandelin, that was 30 minutes after the gunshots. And according to Isaac, that was 10 or 15 minutes, and he had already went to the store. So that would mean that Isaac Funderberg went to the store at like, I don't know, 7:05, was at the store for a little bit, and then he comes back because he has to be back to be able to see and walk into this guy, Hartman, at 7:31. So if he's over here at this side of town at the Super 1 at 7:26 and at 7:28, okay, how can Isaac Funderberg be at the Super 1 leaving at 7:28 and be the car that is seen, or that Van Leuven is saying is seen turning around in Moores and flashing the lights, and that's the eyewitness, the reporting party. He flashes a light on your car. Well, wait a second. No, that's not the reporting party's car. The reporting party's car, he's at Super 1, and your Leslie Lehman chick was supposed to go get these cameras, and she didn't. And you guys are trying to push this time of the crime and center it around one thing, which is Jennifer Drake's words of when the time of the crime happened, which is 7:26. No scientific evidence. And in fact, all of your eyewitnesses and Leslie Lehman was staring down a pipe drain. And then what do they do for 2 days after she gets this information? They then do nothing. But here we go. Here's this vehicle. Now, here's my big boom, and I'll leave you guys with this. This vehicle belongs to, I'm going to play a video now that I have. Okay, here we go. This vehicle that almost matches that of Isaac Funderberg's vehicle is like almost identical. This vehicle belonged to David Elliott Wiley. And I say belonged because he bought it in Bonners Ferry in 2019, and then he would sell it in May of 2020. This vehicle was found on the canvassing and right there on Hillside Alley, right past it, right where this vehicle was seen turning around over there. That's where this vehicle was found, seen behind the apartment complex, sitting there, and it was photographed and it was reported on. But now let me show you what happened to David Elliott Wiley. In 2021, we are aggrieved to announce that David Elliott Wiley, 33, born in Logan, Utah, residing in Bonners Ferry, Idaho, passed away unexpectedly November 26, 2021, around 6 p.m. after a tragic train accident. David grew up, blah, blah, blah. You can go on to read all about this, okay? On November 26, 2021, over in Bonners Ferry, there was a train wreck where they said that a gentleman was, what the rumor is in town, is that this gentleman was intoxicated and that he was trying to beat the train and tried to run across the train tracks, and that he didn't make it. And then so therefore, he died by the train. When I saw this, I looked up because there's a lot of people saying a lot of horrible things, saying that he committed suicide. And then I talked to locals, and then I was physically there myself. These trains move in that town, so they're not fast moving trains. This is in the local area. It's not fast. It's not moving like that. And just so you know, and just so you can see, That is 100% part of the investigation. All right. And that is 100% the make and model and the owner of this vehicle, which is very similar. Like when I say very similar, it almost is identical to the vehicle that Van Leuven is reporting as Isach Funderberg's at that time. That vehicle is not Isach Funderberg's, and instead it belonged to, okay, David Elliott Wiley, who on May 6th, what's the date of this again? On May 6th, was live and well. He was well. He would get married in June of 2021. And then he was expecting, he already had a son with his wife, and he was 2. And so therefore, then he's expecting his second child, which was going to be coming in February of 2022. And so it was really disheartening to read that these people were saying that this man who worked for, he has 2 undergraduate degrees. Okay. I don't care. People have passed whatever. But it begs the question that this man's car had every reason to be back there at the Hillside Alley driving around because he lived back there. They did the neighborhood canvas. They found this car, which matches the description that Van Leuven is trying to pass off as Isach Funderberg. Even though Isach Funderberg is telling the detective that he was at Super1 at that time. So then therefore it could not be Isach Funderberg's car, and that Isach Funderberg did his little drive around way earlier, which would be at 7, okay? And that this person and this little whatever was going on at that time that you're saying, it was not Isach Funderberg's car. And again, how can Isach Funderberg see anything at 7:26 at the time that Jennifer Drake, the only person out there that is saying that this happened, and that the police did not vet this, even though they had everything. They could prove that Isach Funderberg lied about what vehicle he went to the store in. Then I have the body camera from Brandon Johnson. So let me go back to my report, which is right here. The reason that they had that phone call was in the investigation with Supplemental 43, it was for the purpose to elicit specific details about Isach's encounter with Stephen P. Hartman that Isach Funderberg had not previously told law enforcement in any interview, or at least anyone that was recorded. What did anyone involved in this investigation do after detaining Stephen Hartman and interviewing Isach and Aaliyah on 3/13? As in 3/13 to 3/15, there are no reports dated for any of those dates by any agents with ISP involved in this case. How is that possible? How is that possible? Now, I also have the body cam of Brandon Johnson when he is in a SUV, not a little car, not a Charger. So then I was able to eliminate Brandon Johnson from being the Charger car that was behind the liquor store, that camera that I have. I'm able to eliminate him as being in a Charger car. And now there are only 2 people. And I think I actually have it down to 1. Marty Ryan or new police chief Willie Cowell. And what I heard from locals is that Willie Cowell at that time was not in a Charger or a sedan police cop cruiser, and that he actually also had an SUV as well. So that leaves Marty Ryan, that would be the creeper cop car at 717, 718 behind the liquor store that you see creep out that I showed you guys. Now, again, this is my report. So when they want to say it's not about what it's about what you can prove, Lana. Well, this is what I can prove. What I can prove is that this vehicle that they are trying to say is Isach Funderberg is not Isach Funderberg, from Isach Funderberg's own words, and they knew it. Leslie Lehman knew it. Leslie, who is in charge of also the Idaho 4 case, this is the person that knew it. They knew it the day after the murder that 7:26 was not the time of the crime. And I went as far as to say that there's some stuff I want to leave out of public my report. Why wasn't Super 1 cameras obtained by ISP? They had cameras there, and they were great cameras, especially seeing that everyone said that they went there that night, especially Isaac and Eldora, the last patient and the 911 caller. Isaac and Aaliyah's transcribed interviews prove, as well as the Liberty camera gas station corroborates, that Stephen Hartman talked to Isaac at 7:30 to 7:31 p.m., which Aaliyah said was like 30 minutes after the shot. The body camera of Brandon Johnson proves that at 7:41 p.m., when he stopped and chatted with Aaliyah Sandelin, which is on record for about 1 minute, you can see that when Brandon Johnson stops talking to her and turns to go back to his SUV, that Isach Funderberg's hatchback is there, but more importantly, now the white car is not there. Aaliyah's white car, which would have been after the 7:31 p.m. encounter with Stephen Hartman. So when you want to say that you then took your girlfriend's car to go and do something, and you're trying to say that you went to this store with that vehicle, you in fact did not do that. You did leave and you did take that vehicle. But who would want to be seen out driving in that vehicle if that car is being, looked for? Now, Stephen Hartman says that at 7:30 p.m., he saw Isaac in his silver hatchback with German Shepherd dogs, and that this was after he came back from the store. When Leslie Lehman called him back, meaning Isaac, on 3/13/2020, and that, oh yes, the guy that ran into him on the same side was when he was pulling in from arriving back from the grocery store. The only problem is Isaiah told you, Leslie, that he took his girlfriend's car to the grocery store, and that he didn't have his phone with him when he went there. And it was corrected by Sandelin say, oh, wait, didn't you take my car and my phone to the store with you? Anybody with an ounce of intuition, experience, and this is your calling, Leslie, you buried this, or you were told to bury this, and guess what you did? You bent over and you fucking did it, and you took it. And then you go to a fucking family barbecue and a town barbecue and talk about how you arrested the murderer? No, girl, I'm going to show you for what you are, and what you did was you protected corrupt motherfuckers. Because you were told to go get the camera from Super 1. You and 4 other people were told to go and do that. I shouldn't just say Super 1, relevant cameras. Right when Isaiah lied to you and you could prove it and you knew it, you should have been like, I need to go to Super 1 and go get that camera. And now the question is did you? Because I know what my report tells me that you did or didn't do. But I just cannot wait to see what you did on the 14th and the 15th of motherfucking March in 2020. And when a jury hears all this motherfucking shit, go look up what wrongful deaths would get you. Go look up what malicious prosecution will get you if you're Dan Moore. You're going to sit here and tell me that in a murder investigation, not a single person in this investigation did anything on the 14th or the 15th of March. The 13th. Well, Leslie, after you realize that a 19-year-old punk just played your ass and lied to you, and so does his girlfriend, what do? You never nobody interviewed Stephen Hartman again. Well, Stephen Hartman was proven totally true and factual because of the cameras. Liberty Camera gas station proves that what Hartman said is true. And in fact shows that the murder did not happen at 7:26 because Isach Funderberg didn't witness Dick at 7:26. Tim Hand is your witness that says, I saw this little hatchback cruising right across me with no lights on, driving straight from Les Schwab's side, cuts right in front of me and goes right through and into the crime scene. And that happened between 6:55 and 7:05 p.m. Let's continue with my report. Again, you will see that Funderberg is lying or is not articulating properly how many times he drove over to the crime scene and when those times truly were. ISP did nothing. And so now when you want to talk to me about the motherfucking Idaho 4 case and you want to say, Leanna, why do you think these things? I don't think anything. I know. I don't need to think. Okay, let me take that back. I need to think. I want to prove it to you guys that when I come out on my channel and what I've been working on for the past, let's see, since the first time I saw the name Gary Tolson and looked him up, and then it took me to this path. It wasn't just Gary Tolson. Leslie was given, or what they said, here, send your video surveillance to this Leslie Lamb at isp.gov, blah, 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 blah. Wait, we sent our stuff to this motherfucking woman who in a 2020 case buried evidence? Holy shit. Now, why didn't ISP ever ask to go and see both of their phones, download them, after what Funderberg said? It's, hey, you got to go back. How about just interview them? They never spoke to him again in a recorded interview. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. Now, I went as far as to say this. Leah Sandlin said that she was interviewed or somebody came to her apartment twice that morning and had her sign something and blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what, you guys? There's drone footage from the morning of, let me get my stuff. I know that I'm throwing a lot at you this morning or this evening. But right here would be report number 2. Okay. And I went ahead and I wanted to get information on when so you guys remember the name Timothy Snell? Aaron Snell? Come on now. The Snells. Well, Detective Timothy Snell, along with other ISP detectives, were assigned to assist the Bonners Ferry Police Department in a homicide investigation. And it was at this point, report number 2, that my assignments was to obtain video and photographs at the scene involving the victim, Brian Drake. Now, what I went ahead and did is I took every single one of the videos. I took all the stills, okay? And drone footage and pics from outside the crime scene of 6811 Main Street were obtained and memorialized in the supplemental report labeled SAU Supplemental Report Number 2. In this supplemental media folder, there should be metadata with each picture and the media footage obtained. This data needs to be looked at to see the timestamps of said pics and videos as they capture eyewitness Sandlin Funderberg's residence and where they park their vehicles. During the gathering of said evidence, Funderberg's car is never seen. Remember, he said he went to work that morning, okay? Whereas Sandlin's is seen only at the beginning of this process as her vehicle is then too gone after only a couple still photos were snapped. This time frame is very important as Sandlin said that she was visited by local law enforcement that next morning, aka 3/13/2020, on 2 occasions, which I have it as something like 8:30 and 10:30, okay? That's what she said. Now, during those trips, it was said that material evidence was obtained by law enforcement from Sandlin in the form of eyewitness claims to do with the description of the quote-unquote first suspect. Aaliyah gives specific times that she was visited. I went ahead and pulled this report because I knew it was valuable. And this report says 8 a.m. that they started. Okay? 8 a.m. Now, I said, bingo, bango, bongo, Lana, you a bad bitch. You want to know why I did that? Because none other than Fatty Van Leeuwen sent me there. Because he told me when he arrived from his supplemental report number 1, I arrived at the crime scene located, right? He arrived at 9:10 a.m. and spoke with Boundary County Sheriff David Kramer, so he was there at 9:22 a.m. Marty Ryan, the Assistant Chief of Police, gave a briefing of those. Now my question is, I want to know where this briefing was when it says, I arrived at the crime scene. Where did they do this briefing at? Well, let me tell you guys where I think it was. Ready? None other than the coffee shop, ladies and gentlemen, Far North Coffee Shop, which was directly next to Brian Drake's building. But do you notice how he does not say, I arrived at the crime scene? Okay, so I know that you didn't go inside because you didn't until you got the warrant to go in at 3 p.m. So what were you doing between 9 and 3 p.m. until that warrant was signed? They use the command center being that of the Far North Coffee Lodge. Why is that important? Because you would think that there'd be some interviews with some of those employees or the owner. Wouldn't you think that you would interview people to, hey, does Brian ever come in here? Hey, do you ever see him with anybody? Hey, did you ever see him get in a fight? Hey, what are his normal hours? Hey, do you guys have any cameras in here? Now, right here, it lists who was present, which was amazing. Who are those present in the debriefing? And I came across, I said, oh, hell motherfucking no. Sheriff Kramer, Chief Deputy Rich Stevens, Detectives Dave McClellan and Caleb Watt, Boundary County Prosecutor Tevis Hall, who's dead, Boundary County Coroner Mick Millett, Coeur d'Alene Police Department Detectives Schulten and Studel, Idaho State Police Detectives Tolson, Snell, and myself. I said, there we go. Now, then I looked at my report and I said, who is doing this again? Oh, yeah. The drone. At 10:05, well, let me back up. Assistant Chief Ryan advised the deceased had been identified as Brian Drake, a chiropractor who had an office in Bonners Ferry, where he saw local patients. Drake's office was one of 3 offices, one unoccupied, in the same building of 6811 Main Street. Drake lived in Hayden, Idaho, with his wife of 20 years and 4 minor children. Drake had an office in Bonners Ferry because he had many patients that lived in the area. Drake had been on the phone with his wife, Jennifer Drake, at the time he was shot. Well, my investigation says that he was dead well before 7/17. And you know where my investigation comes from, right? Not just made up shit and data that I just pull out of my fucking ass. My information comes from none other than the information that you would use that's called the criminal discovery, that's called police reports. Okay. I put together my independent investigation, and it's all off of every single thing from the discovery. The discovery that Jennifer Drake is in possession of right now. The discovery, the criminal case that's opened and active right now, is in the hands of Jennifer Drake, who is in my investigation, a prime suspect. You want to know why she's a prime suspect in my investigation? Because the time of the crime is not at 7:26 p.m. The time of the crime is way before that, with every single eyewitness account other than Jennifer Drake, who's hearsay. And you know what's interesting is that the gunshot that went through that window that was said to come from the outside in, it didn't come from outside in. It came from inside out. And that's not the shot that killed Brian Drake. So then there it goes. It goes with what the eyewitnesses said, which is multiple gunshots that they heard. The gunshot that went through the window is what you call tampering with the crime scene, and that happened after the fact. That was the second one. But how would Jennifer Drake know that? Now that's the question. If Jennifer Drake is in Hayden, how would Jennifer Drake know that there was actually a gunshot that actually went through the window that she was able to tell 911 about? Well, clearly Jennifer Drake had a different cell phone, because Jennifer Drake did not call 911 with her cell phone. As phone records show, Jennifer Drake did not use her cell phone to call 911. In fact, it can be proven that Jennifer Drake, like 100%, without a doubt, did not use her personal cell phone to call 911. Like that is done over, not like, that's not, oh, Lana, that you're speculating. No, I'm telling you. Every record that I went and obtained and I've put out on my channel shows you guys that no 911 call came from Amber Van Ling's cell phone or came from Jennifer Drake's cell phone on 3/12/2020. And then how I even just double, triple, quadruple check that is then Jennifer Drake, with her personal cell phone, decides by accident, I think it's God. I think it's just God. I think it's Brian Drake saying, you're not going to get away with this. But she accidentally, or somebody accidentally, calls and hits Brian Drake at 7:32 and 40 seconds. And it was a 3-second call. Well, at 7:32 and 40 seconds, Jennifer Drake would be on the phone with none other than 911 in Boundary. How could you be on the phone with your personal cell phone talking to 911, and yet your phone then just makes another call to Brian. Oh, but wait, your phone never registered that you ever called 911 in the first place. That's how. Oops. Oopie. Then Brian Drake's phone is walking all over the place after he was dead, allegedly. Dead. And he was dead. But his phone's walking all over, being moved. And how I can prove this is none other than the Cellbrite report that they dumped when they did Brian Drake's cell phone. They had a cell phone there, and they dumped the material in a Cellbrite. And what I was able to locate that proves it beyond a reasonable doubt is that in both the prosecution witness that would be an expert from Cellbrite, as well as the defense expert would agree on this, that holy shit, yeah, somebody, his son texted him at 8:16 and at 8:17 p.m. back to back. I love you. And then the next one, a couple seconds later, says Papa at 8:16 and 8:17. Well, that phone, per the Cellbrite report, says that somebody, because Brian is dead laying on the ground and there are cops inside of his office, and that somebody has his phone and opens up the phone and views the text messages. How do I know this? Because the Cellbrite report shows that each text message that you open and read, it'll say read. Okay? If you are dead at 7:26, like Jennifer says, we'll even give her that, then who opened up Brian Drake's phone after his son had texted at 8:16 and 8:17 to then view, opened up, looked at those text messages, and they were able to be listed as read? Whereas if nobody had touched the phone since the moment that the cops got in there at 7:54 p.m., like they stated in multiple reports, then who opened up the phone to view those? Because now the Cellbrite report shows that those were viewed. I later had both of these phones downloaded and using Cellbrite. Those Cellbrites show exactly what I just said. His phone was opened by local law enforcement between the hours of 8:18 p.m. and 9:52 p.m. Oh, Lana, you're so good. I know, girl. All I'm doing here is conducting a live investigation. Doing what I believe all of those cops could do. It's what they chose not to do. But I don't care what the motive is, why they didn't do it, because I don't have to prove motive. I just have to prove what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is 100% provable. Not because it's the data. The information proves it. And Bonners Ferry and all those areas around there and the counties. When Jennifer Drake says that there's a killer walking among you, there's a murderer walking among you, she's definitely motherfucking right. It's about the only thing she's right about. There is motherfucking murderers walking around you. Could it have been law enforcement on the scene? Absolutely, it was law enforcement on the scene. That's who tampered with. This show has never once claimed that Jennifer Drake shot her husband. Jennifer Drake would never shoot her husband. Jennifer Drake doesn't have those type of balls. Jennifer Drake. This proves that Jennifer Drake is 100% lying about the hearsay on the phone. Jennifer Drake fucked up a little bit. But then also what happens here is at 7:44 p.m., they're going to have to explain this phone call that Jennifer Drake received from none other than Boundary County Sheriff's Department. And that's going to be, I cannot wait for them to spit and choke on that one. Now, I want to show you guys something here. I'll show you guys how fucked up the crime scene was. I took pre-search, search, and post-search photographs. He says, I later placed them. So I meaning Van Leuven did this. Okay. So there you guys go. This car is not Isach Funderberg's. It belonged to David, deceased, rest his soul, David Wiley. There's the car, matching the exact, almost to a T, what Isach Funderberg was driving. There you go. They did a neighborhood canvas 2 months later. They located that car, okay, because they were watching the videos. And this would be an incorrect, purposely stated thing in this report. It can be proven that Isach Funderberg was 100% not there where he's saying that he was. And more importantly, Stephen Hartman, Aaliyah Sandelin, Tim Hand, those additional statements. So that's the vehicle that the jury, I believe, will believe that was there and that did that little turnaround. There's the proof in it and that they had it in the discovery and that they never attempted to talk to this man. Okay. And instead they went with that Dan Moore committed or attempted to commit suicide through a natural gas leak. That's what the type of education and training we're dealing with. Next up is I can prove that the crime scene, again, the crime did not happen at 7:26, okay? But that the crime scene was not properly memorialized with the evidence that was taken in. You read all of these things that would have been taken in, okay? Let me tell you what you're missing here. You're missing the glass, the actual fucking window, all right? The actual window. You're missing, then you yank the blinds all the way up instead of just removing them. You yank them up. You don't have the stool right here. You don't take the stool. You don't take the knee brace that Brian Drake was wearing. You don't take the piece of hair, the blonde piece of hair that was found on the table, the long blonde piece of hair that was found on the table, the chiropractic table of Dr. Drake that you have pictures of. You remove the deep blue cardboard box from its resting place on the windowsill when you were trying to perform these inept reenactment pictures of an angle of a rod. Woo! You do not take any of the bottles of alleged alcohol, vodka, that was allegedly in his office, okay, that you're trying to claim is vodka without testing it properly. It's not even taken into evidence from the crime scene, okay? Nothing is dusted for prints. Instead, you allow Jennifer Drake to come in the very next day and, oh, I'm sorry. You also don't put into evidence Eldora Gatchell's number 3 patient chart payment form that is found and seen in photographs within the crime scene, where it shows that Eldora Gatchell was seen and only paid for herself, and that there are no mentionings of seeing Caleb Caco-Nazara. So why would Eldora Gatchell be there from 6:05 to 7:17? Next. Tim Hand proves the 7 p.m. time that Isaac went over there as well. He was an eyewitness that ISP ignored. They never looked for his vehicle on camera. Why didn't ISP ever ask to, again, seek both of their phones, Isaac and Aaliyah Sandlin? They were never re-interviewed. I said that. Nowhere in the criminal discovery is the information that Aaliyah Sandlin provided to detain and the search warrants provided for Steve Hartman, that identification for identification purposes, the first suspect, that she signed any of that stuff. None of that is in evidence. Where are the search warrant applications to include probable cause affidavit to search and detain Stephen P. Hartman's hotel room, vehicle, and person? Again, David Winey, the fire chief, was interviewed, and they just lost his interview, and it wasn't recorded. Okay. Dan Moore, Dr. Dan Moore, was first ever interviewed on March 24th, 2020. They have recorded all of these interviews, and yet here you get to Dr. Dan Moore's interview on March 24th as they were, just talking to everybody. His interview is not recorded, the first ever interview of him. This is when they allegedly try to say that they learned of his gas leak. That's not how they learned of his gas leak. And let me tell you why they ever went and interviewed Dan Moore in the first place, was because Jennifer Drake provided law enforcement with a Facebook article that was shared underneath the Bonner County, Boundary County Facebook crap, where it said that, quote unquote, there was a woman that wrote an article, and we have since identified and interviewed. We will not speak on that at this time. And somebody provided law enforcement with this article that was written. And in this article, it said that this is the 102nd holistic doctor that was killed. And they claimed the reason that they want to talk to Dr. Moore is because they are going around in the area and wondering if chiropractors or holistic doctors were in danger and they could be taken out. Well, then why weren't there any other doctors talked to in the area of Bonner's Ferry besides Dr. Dan Moore? There are no other chiropractors or doctors that were interviewed for that purpose. Funderberg also made up a story. Okay. My report number 25. That Sean Saget from work, who he referred to as Spencer in his interview, was a very strange guy. And please, I have no idea why Spencer was asking me and knew that I was the eyewitness to this, because I never told him, and there was no way that my boss would tell him. Well, I go and I get Sean Saget's interview that once again was not recorded by law enforcement, and everything, all these ones are. And here is Sean 47, report 47. And here, this happens to be on March 13th. Okay. And what was said was on March 13th at 1917 hours, because, this is what Isaac said, so I'm just showing you all the ways that Leslie knew that Isaac was lying. Okay. Just like all the ways that Dylan or Bethany were lying and that they were just ignored. Just showing you guys a little pattern here. Pattern. Leslie and Rich interviewed Sean Jacob at the Boundary County Jail. And Sean had been mentioned as a co-worker. And I would love to know how they actually then knew the real name of this person, because he didn't know his name. He said his name was Spencer. So how and when did they figure this out, that this is who he was referring to? That's just still a mystery. Very interesting one, though, that they were able to figure out who this was in just a matter of, a couple hours, when the name was Spencer. That means you would have had to talk to Jacob Wolf, who was the owner of the company. And where's his interview then? Where's his interview? Because that's how like Ann Taylor or anybody else would write in and be like, supplemental request number 15, number 426 of 15. How did you find who Sean was when Isach Funderberg says his name is Spencer? So how did you determine that this was who Isach Funderberg was talking to? Did you talk to Jacob Wolf, who was the forester person that, Funderberg worked for? And if so, where is that report in the discovery? Because it ain't there. Now, when they talked to this guy, because he had a report he was doing whatever. During the interview, Sean stated that he had lived on El Paso Street, but had been trespassed from the location on the Monday prior, March 19th. So, is this that person that was the transient? No. Sean stated the night before the prior, he had been at Kyle's house near the city swimming pool. So if anybody out there knows who Kyle's house near the city swimming pool is, please email me. I think I know who it is, but would love to hear from you. Sean stated he was at the house during the time of the shooting. Well, how would he know what time the shooting was? And just imagine that. Why wouldn't you record this material? Like, you would need this. It just says right here, the interview is not recorded. Leslie, because you're just such a good fucking detective. Sean knew Spain, Ireland, referring him to as Isaac Spain. Sean said he found out that morning that Spain, Ireland had witnessed the shooting. Now, don't you think you'd want to talk to this person and probably record it and hear what Isaac had to say? And why isn't this on record? He's saying that he had witnessed the shooting, not like witnessed or heard just shotguns or shots, but hey, this guy told me that he had witnessed the shooting. And I do believe that he kind of did. That's how he knows about the exact description of none other than Caleb Pacoa Nazara. Sean said Spain, Ireland was the one who told him about witnessing the shooting, that he was the witness in the shooting. Because in Isaac's interview, Leslie, what did Isaac say to you? I have no idea how this guy possibly knew this, man. Like he's like weird and creepy. He was talking about how he spends more time than anybody else in jail. And he was like bragging about it. I don't know. It was just really weird. And I don't know how he knew this, because I didn't tell him, because I don't really know who he is. That's exactly what Isaac said to you. probably in that tone too. We can play it back. So then once again, you find out that Isaac was lying to you yet again on 313 by yet again a different person. And what is your response, Leslie? We won't interview Isaac again. Oh, he's 19. He's You are one hell of a detective. But you know what's even worse is that Van Leeuwen has all these reports. Well, you're telling me that we never talked to Isaac or Aaliyah or Stephen Hartman or now Sean again? Because all we have is everything that Isaac Funderberg has told you is a lie. Oh, but guess what? We can't do that because, oh my God, that means Jennifer Drake is a liar. That means that it didn't happen at 7:30 or 7:26 rather. And oh my God, we have to bury that. You guys seeing this yet? Now, Leslie, and so the way that I word it is Isaac tries to throw this guy under the bus and is trying to make everyone look suspicious, just like the guy that was running around the side and off to, no. Leslie said she was going to take a look at Funderberg's tires on both cars in the interview because he was driving through the alley of Drake's. If you go ahead and you check the pictures in evidence, none of them are of a close-up on any tire. So where are they, Leslie? Did you just not put those in evidence or you just not take any tire pics? Which is it, sweetie? Now, historical records are needed on both Isaac and Aaliyah's phones. Why? Because they will tell you the exact story. Also, why didn't you go and get Super1 cameras? Well, because that would just be too fucking logical. To the transparency, was there pics of Drake's brace at the scene or was it missing? Yeah, it was just left there. So they took it off before they put him in a body bag. What time did ISP begin taking drone video pics on 3/13/2020? Remember, Funderberg's car is not present at the apartment at any point when taking these pictures. And Aaliyah's car is present for only some of them. Where did Aaliyah go that morning? Also, Aaliyah said that Watts or someone from law enforcement came to her apartment super early to show her pictures, and that this guy had to come back later around 10:30 a.m. to have her sign the picture that she was shown and dated and timestamped it. Those pictures have never surfaced in the discovery. Also, the timing of all of this is very interesting because no one is home over at Isaac's that morning when compared to the drone footage and the pictures in evidence from that morning from police drone crime scene photos. So we need metadata on all those pictures to prove that nobody could have possibly been at Aaliyah's at 8:30 to do any of this, okay? Or that this at least didn't occur at Aaliyah's because nobody was home there. And how did I figure that out? Because I went and took the report from the people that did the drone footage, and they said that they arrived at 8 a.m. And then I started from the beginning of all the photos, and I see Aaliyah's picture or Aaliyah's car's there. Oh, then here it's not. And so what do? I build a binder, I put it all in, and I say all these pictures have to be timestamped with what time all this took place, because we will then see that Aaliyah couldn't have been talked to at certain times if she wasn't home, or it happened somewhere else, which maybe if Aaliyah's memory was jerked around a little bit, she'd be like, oh, actually they had me walk over to the coffee shop. Now, I was able to get my hands and talk to every single employee from 2020 that worked at the coffee shop, except for the owner and Marty Ryan's wife. And by God, do they have cameras? And by God, did ISP and the police have that camera footage of 8 to 9 slides that night of the murder? So then why does the community think and are told that the cameras didn't work, or they didn't record, or that they weren't there, or whatever they want to be said? And why is it that yet again, when you look through the people that were interviewed on March 17th, the police interviews, we get to number 12. Okay. These are the people that were interviewed on March 17th. The first time that Leslie would write up another report, because she wrote a report on the 13th. Then she wouldn't write any reports on the 14th, 15th, or 16th. Her next report is that she said that she performed interviews / was going around to try to get cameras. You were asked to do that on the 13th, sugar. But she says that she interviews none other than Gary William Butch Short. And he is the owner of the Far North. It's funny that you want to say the Far North Outfitters. Why aren't you saying that he's also the owner of the Far North Coffee Lodge? Why aren't you adding that in your report? I'll add it for you. That's all the same. Now, so much so that when you work there and one of your nightly duties is to straighten up the bathrooms, you make sure that they have toilet paper, that all the bathrooms have toilet paper. So these employees had to take, because it was all the materials were in one office or one like closet. So the night of the murder, there was footage of what ISP thought was somebody trying to steal toilet paper. And now how would ISP know about and be able to report back to the owner and say, hey, man, I know that it's COVID and people are trying to take, toilet paper is like just a hot commodity. I think someone's trying to steal your toilet paper that works for you. How would ISP know that? How would any local law enforcement know about any of that if the cameras were not recording on the night of the murder? That's going to come up. So Detective Alderson and I, meaning Leslie, met with Kelly Jones at the Liberty Mart located at 6856 Main Street, Bonners Ferry. Liberty Mart owner Bibik Sunar was also at the premises assisting the video surveillance. Jones served as the technical provider for the video surveillance equipment at the Liberty Mart and several locations throughout Bonners Ferry. The meeting with Jones was brief, as the video surveillance footage for the Liberty Mart from the evening hours of March 12, 2020 was already looping over and erasing the footage needed to be preserved. Gotcha, Leslie. The evening hours of March 12, 2020 was already looping over and erasing the footage needed to be preserved. Follow-up with Jones was handled by ISP Trooper Andy. She was trying to bury the Liberty cameras, you guys, that she knew from 3/13 interview with Isach Funderberg, and then Stephen Hartman's interview, and then seeing what the cameras had picked up, and then hearing that Isach Funderberg was called back and asked and said, oh, I went to the store. Leslie's next move was to literally put in a report falsely, because there was nothing recording over any of the Liberty Mart from the evening hours of March 12, 2020 was already looping over and erasing the footage needing to be preserved. I have that footage. It's in Discovery, because what Leslie didn't realize is that it had already been provided. She didn't know that. But she knew that it had to be buried. Or maybe she just forgot to take this out of her report. Okay, because it's so hard to catch it all when you're fucking just a shitbag. The same day that she goes and that she's saying that there's no Liberty camera footage, she then says, that okay, ready? She's just a wild one, man. She then says that she then went and talked to on March 17th. Well, I'm sorry, before she went and talked to Detective Alderson. I attempted to lift prints from the blue office door and the glass door at the crime scene. You tried to lift prints on March 17th when the murder was on March 12th? I can't. You guys stop it. The dusting was unsuccessful, in case you guys wanted to know. Now, after we attempted at 1425 hours at 225 to dust some, couldn't get anything. The murder was March 12th. Okay, these are the same people. This is the ISP that did. This is the ISP when you guys want to talk about who did the crime scene of the Idaho 4. Now, at 1444 hours on March 17th, so just 20 minutes later, after we went, so you couldn't have tried to dust for that long when at 2:25 you tried to dust, but by God, by 2:45, 20 minutes later, you were able to fire up and be next door inside the coffee lodge to interview none other than Butch Short, the owner. But once again, you don't talk about that. You say at Far North Coffee, you say at Far North Outfitters. Okay. Once again, leaving out that he is, why aren't you writing, the coffee shop, Now, Short confirmed the video surveillance system for the business does not record. This is what she writes. But guess what, guys? Every single encounter on March 17th, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Were recorded, except for Butch Short saying, well, Short confirmed the video surveillance system for the business does not record. It's a gun. It's a gun shop is the Outfitters. And then right next to it in that same building is the coffee shop. Okay. And so you're going to sit here and tell me that I have employees that are saying the exact opposite. And that here's this interview and that Leslie wants to say this encounter right here. This encounter was not recorded. Butch Short, the owner of the coffee shop that's right next door. He said Short looked at the gun sales records from the store and noted that a 70-year-old female had purchased a .38 special on March 12, 2020. Well, why would that be of interest? Okay, well, Short said he was going to pull a gun sales list and provide it for ISP. Just so you know, in Discovery, there is no such list. Now, you'll see that when they talk to Paul Jacobson, this was recorded. Everybody that they talk to. Okay, and you guys, just because we have to take a drink. Jacobson said there was a dark-complected man and female in the waiting room when he came out of Drake's office. The male was playing a ukulele-type instrument. Detective Alderson and I would later determine that the couple were Kakoa and L like that, Dora. Yeah. You guys, this report was written so much time later that she knew, and if she does not know how to spell Eldora, this is who the people are that are and have they're investigating and did investigate in their tactics and how they're trained the Idaho 4 case. And Eldora, it is wow. Now Jacobson called a friend from the parking lot in his pickup, then drove home. Jacobson told me the call was made at 8:18 hours. I'm not going to get into too much about this because I'm holding some cards back. Now, let's go back to the fact that ISP dusted for prints 5 days after the murder. Their first dusting of prints was 5 days after the murder, and they dusted the glass door that you would go in from the back and the blue door that's the front door in the front. 5 days, and they said that it was unsuccessful. Okay, now we're gonna call the tip line and just say, hey, just want to give a tip that y'all fucking suck. I don't know if you need that tip. Maybe you already know it, but y'all suck. Now I'm going to take some questions since you guys, but the biggest thing was able to prove some stuff, that was new for you guys, which is ISP saying that Funderberg's car was in fact the one that was, driving back and circling and showing that that was at the time that it was looking for this person back there. No, this is the car. Okay. They did a neighborhood canvas. They knew about it. They did nothing about it. And then that guy would wind up dead by means of a train, November 26th, 2021. The prosecutor on this case would wind up dead on the side of the road. Misty Olson, the woman that was the person that ran Kip Hartman's office, which was next to Brian Drake's, dead. I want to let you guys know that right before the murders, and this has never been said before, but Marty Ryan's child came out to Marty Ryan as being transgendered, and Marty Ryan lost his shit, and so did his wife, and said that they would rather have a I think it was something along the lines of die a slow death of cancer than have a trans kid. Something like that. So Isach Funderberg, Leslie, ISP, they knew about all of this. They knew about the time frame did not match up, and ISP did no work. There was no work done from on the 14th and the 15th. And so you would think everything that I'm giving out here, it would maybe like, why hasn't Jennifer Drake fired up a wrongful death against the police department? Why? I mean, call me crazy, but wouldn't she be blowing me up saying, oh my goodness? So what kind of questions do you guys have if you guys have been following the case if you were, hey, you're part of the jury. You're part of the jury and you hear that The shot didn't come from outside in, it came from inside out. You have these eyewitnesses that are saying that the shot was earlier. You have video surveillance that proves it. You have what sticks out to you. What questions do you have? And then how can you not say that Jennifer Drake in some way, shape, or form is involved, as she was the one that told law enforcement when she called 911 that her husband said that he was shot through a window. And remember, that is inconsistent with Brian Drake's sweater that would have soil, vegetation, and debris on his back sweater, but yet worked inside an office all day. His nails would have nothing but, dirt underneath his nails. The trajectory was not that of sitting over and hunched over and working. Nothing was disrupted on his desk. So why would Jennifer Drake say that she was on the phone with her husband for 9.5 minutes when or 9 minutes and 15 seconds when everybody else is saying that her husband was already shot? So how do you see this as a potential juror? How do you see this as, what obstacles do you have? And you say, oh, well, Dan Moore confessed. By God. Well, how can Dan Moore confess to shooting through a window when the guy wasn't shot through the window? So the confession has to match the murder. I mean, that's what a false confession is all about. Nothing that Dan Moore said matches the actual way that this man was murdered. No, as far as having an affair, I don't think this has anything to do about an affair. I think this has everything to do about money. Jennifer Drake, the widow, received her $1 million life insurance policy on her husband within less than a month. She called 13 times while her dead husband laid on the floor, bleeding out. Her calls the next day, she wasn't calling her pastor. She was calling Omaha. Give me that money, honey. But this is who was in charge of the Idaho 4 case. You guys should be totally fine with everything that's coming out. Ann Taylor speaking nothing but facts. I support Ann Taylor. I support her drive. I support innocent until proven guilty. I think that I also can prove how Jennifer Drake could possibly afford a hitman. There's evidence that's out there as to how she could possibly afford that. So all of you guys that are listening in, anybody, here you go. I invite here. Here's the link. Take it. Come on up here. Tell me what you think. Would love to hear from you. There it is. This case is crazy, right? Jennifer Drake tried to sue Dr. Moore. Yeah, and then he countered, and now it's in, they're going to like court. Something else that I want to show you guys is, when you want to talk about this is the probable cause, okay? So and you want to compare some stuff here, but Funderberg said that he yelled at the figure, words to the effect of, where have we seen that before? Hey, was that you? Referring to the gunshot? Okay. Funderberg said that the man looked back at him and then ran north on the sidewalk of Main Street and then to the northeast towards the State Farm Insurance office. He later said the figure was running in the direction of what he described as a pediatric office or a kid's dentist office. He described this building as an A-frame. Now, Funderberg's fiance, Aaliyah Sandlin, also heard the shot and observed the figure running away to the northeast. Now I want you guys to see what Van Leuven said that he was going to provide in his affidavit, probable cause, which I think needs to be pointed out, which is the affidavit is intended to show only that there is sufficient probable cause for the requested warrant and does not set forth all of my knowledge about this matter, which I think is just tits right there. I have set forth only the facts necessary to support a finding of probable cause. Well, no, you haven't. These aren't motherfucking facts. Okay? And any facts that would lead the court to not find probable cause on the charges. So wait a second. You're saying in this probable cause affidavit that's 19 pages that you've provided what you deem as both facts, only facts necessary to support a finding of probable cause, and any facts that would lead the court to not find probable cause. And now this is how you have Van Leuven on the hook. Okay? And when I showed that to Bella, then she understood why I was saying what I've been saying is, Van Leuven said that he provided both probable cause as to why you should go ahead and give us this, these warrants, which is one of them is, to arrest this man and to search all of his belongings, his house, all that crap. But we're also going to go ahead and put in here anything that's factual that, would lead the court to not find probable cause. Okay. And so then I went ahead and I said, oh, hell yeah, Lana's going to have a field day with this shit. And I did. And so why didn't you put Van Leuven in this report that Isach Funderberg did not call? Isach Funderberg did not call 911 right away. If you're saying that Isach Funderberg called at 7:29. Because that's impossible. Isach Funderberg could not have seen this at 7:28. Could not be the person that drove around, turned around his car, all that bullshit, when he is at Super 1. Why didn't you say that Liberty Camera and Stephen Hartman's statements and Aaliyah Sandelin's statements say that the gunshot happened before Jennifer Drake ever even talked to her husband at 7:17? If Lana wasn't doing what she was doing right now, and we all knew nothing of this from mainstream, imagine the injustice. Yeah. And see, I'm laying it all out for you though too. So to see that this man claimed that he did all those things, and I have all these reports to show that he did not, and that in fact that he told his people not to ever go back and re-interview Isach Funderberg and call him out on his lies, or just rather Isach Funderberg never told you guys a time. You guys told Isach Funderberg the times. So right here, Aaliyah also heard the shot and observed the figure running away to the northeast. Funderberg said he immediately got in his car and tried to find the man so that he could take a picture of him. Yeah, at 6:55. He said he dialed 911 to report the shooting. No, he didn't report the shooting. He called 911 to say, I heard gunshots. That's it. Listen to the 911 call. He said he dialed 911 to report the shooting within a couple of minutes of it happening. Why do you think he's putting this in here like this? It's because he's putting it on Isach Funderberg's lie that he told. I didn't lie. This is what Isach Funderberg told me. But guess what? Your reports tell you otherwise, motherfucker. He said he dialed 911 to report the shooting within a couple of minutes of it happening. Well, you're reporting the supplemental reports that you have, and this is how you would win in a Franks. Okay, you have to prove two things: that They knowingly put false information, and it was with the complete and total lack of, disregard for the truth. That's exactly what they did. Truth and transparency. Would you be interested in having somebody create graphs, maps, bullet points for you? Absolutely. I'm always, let's make it this is home team, baby. Come be part of the home teamers. Absolutely. I would love that, actually. Absolutely love that. The call to dispatch from Funderberg came in at 7:29 p.m. And this is why this is important, because they can't pinpoint any time that Sugar Tits called, because there's no record of it. Funderberg's call into Boundary Dispatch actually came in before Jennifer Drake's 911 call, by the time it had been patched through from Kootenai and Bonner counties. And that's not true. That's not true, because I want to see Isach Funderberg's cell phone records. I want to see what time Isach Funderberg truly called, because they were all up in that area a hell of a lot earlier, as Aaliyah says. Funderberg was unable to locate the individual. Funderberg and Sandelin were later shown several photographic lineups, including one that contained a photo of suspect Moore, but did not identify any individual with certainty. Nobody identified Dr. Moore at all. They identified people saying that this is, Annie, let's do it. The Mind Challenge at gmail.com. That's how you can reach me. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate that. So, not true. Okay, Funderberg was unable to locate the individual. Funderberg, this is not true. Watts reported, in his report they typed up, says that she identified as the suspect, which was Stephen Hartman, but they can't talk about any of that. Now, law enforcement responding. Boundary County Sheriff's deputies, as well as Bonner's Ferry police officers, responded to the scene. And again, what time? It's way earlier. Responding officers found a bullet hole through the window of the exam room of Dr. Drake's office. Again, what time? 7:54 is when it's on the radio, but they knew about it before then. Officers found the door to Dr. Drake's office to be locked and broke it down. Look at that. And broke it down, get to Dr. Drake, and to clear the building. Officers found Dr. Drake lying on the floor of his office unresponsive. And then look at this. They try to put this in. Medical personnel responded. No, they cleared. Okay, they cleared first. They cleared. This is what they did first, and then they did this. They had no interest in saving that man. None. Bonner's Ferry PD had identified a possible suspect the previous evening and were still in the process of tracking this individual down. This is who they were trying to say is Stephen Hartman was there. Stephen Hartman, who Aaliyah Sandelin said came 30 minutes later and has nothing to do with this. And they knew about that. They knew about this prior to the way that Marty Ryan fudged all of these lies to detain that man and search his shit. This person was found and interviewed by the IFP Violent Crime Task Force. Well, then why aren't you saying then that this man was seen on the cameras at 7:34 just before talking to Isach Funderberg in the car that he said he wasn't in? But look at with everything I've been showing you, how they try to do this when we want to talk about these probable cause affidavits for the arrest. So when you go back and you look at the probable cause for the Idaho 4 case, I come and I look at this and I'm like, this is disgusting. His person, hotel room, vehicle, and belongings were searched pursuant to the court-ordered warrants. He was ultimately found not to have been involved in the shooting. Oh, you think? But guess what Stephen Hartman provides that they left out is exculpatory evidence for Dr. Stephen Hartman and Aaliyah Sandelin, Tim Hand, Isach Funderberg. those people, as well as the Liberty Camera gas station, the Columbia Bank gas station, the Super1 camera, and the coffee shop camera, those last two, which were buried, they provide exculpatory evidence for Dr. Moore and for a lot of people out there that would be in the situation. Why I'm saying that is because, and if you would have said this, man, but Stephen Harmon provided exculpatory evidence as his interview shines a light on the time of the crime, plus the eyewitness Funderberg, his whereabouts at the time of the crime, all of it. If you compare all of this shit, and when I say compare it, you provide it. It creates a huge dark cloud over this crime being had at 7:26, 7:25. Like, it's an impossibility. But if you look in here, there is no evidence that they use for science. Like, nobody in here, that's nothing, there's scientific, there's nothing from experts. It's bad. On March 13, the crime scene, I received a properly signed search warrant at approximately 3 p.m. and made entry to the building. I found one hole through the double pane window of the exam room. This window looked out the Far North Coffee Lodge drive-thru. It's the first time you hear about that. The metal mini blinds on the window were closed and had a corresponding hole. The hole through the window and blinds was consistent with being caused by a small caliber bullet being fired by a standing adult. Standing adult. Shooting from immediately outside the window into the office space. Oh, honey. And this is going to get absolutely destroyed in court. The location of the entry wound considered with the trajectory of the bullet. You guys, there is no way to consider the trajectory of the bullet because the work wasn't done right by ISP. But more importantly, you guys, what if I just put up behind me and put up a tape measure, and you guys would see the top of the tape measure and it said, let's just use out 50. It's 50 fucking feet. Well, you, without just seeing the whole picture, you have no idea if I actually have that tape measure down on the ground. I could be holding that tape measure, 5 feet off the ground, That's how they took these pictures. They took a picture of this window. They never measured the stool. Okay. So when Sally Aiken performed her autopsy and she measured the torso, okay, to exclude the legs, the waist down when you would be sitting. So all of Brian Drake's legs no longer matter. None of our legs would matter anymore. And you take our measurements from, sitting on a stool all the way to the top of our head, you're going to have a number. All right. Therefore, it would be imperative that if you were going to show this crime scene in your theory that he was sitting on the stool right in front of the window and slightly leaning forward, okay, and therefore you would want to measure how far the stool was off the ground, then how far the stool was in terms of when you got to the seat part, go up to the window part of the bullet hole. But you would want to be able to take all of these pictures, and you definitely would want to keep that stool into evidence and not give it to Jennifer Drake and leave it behind. You'd also want to take the glass. They left it behind. But to see a picture in evidence of a tape measure that you cannot see the whole entire tape measure, I about died. I'm sorry, but it's just wild. But we have no idea how tall the stool is. And then therefore you can't measure, like, if Brian Drake has X amount of inches within his torso up to, because his legs are this long, So you should be able to measure stuff like that. You can't do stuff because they were trying to fuck with the science of it. So then I got to thinking, like, this is how ISP forensic team comes in and does this. And then you look at the Idaho 4 case and I'm just like, holy fucking shit. Like, this was, to me, the easiest crime scene to process compared to the Idaho 4 case. And if they can't even do this, like, and you just see the work that they do, like, this man wasn't shot through any fucking window. If you do a test of the shooting through the window and you look at it, the shot that actually, the tight part of your bullet hole is going to be where the shot came from, with the bigger explosion is from the other side, the exit. So your entrance is tight, small, but the explosion out is going to be big. And I just, whoa, like, you can just look at the window and know that it did not come from outside in. And right there, that immediately puts Jennifer Drake on the hook for her statements, for her perpetuated lies, and that ISP covered for, and not only covered for, but then they went forward with to then charge a man for murder. And so who's to blame here? Well, all of them are. So you're going to sit here and tell me that I'm wrong? Fuck no, I'm not wrong. This isn't crazy. I'm not crazy. How is any of this crazy? This happens every single day. And it used to happen a shit ton more. And it used to happen a shit ton more to African Americans on the daily. This is just horrible. The location of the entry wound, considered with the trajectory of the bullet in Dr. Drake's body, indicates Dr. Drake was likely sitting on a stool located in front of the window and was facing away from the window. Well, then why is there fucking, if you're sitting on a stool, how is there all this debris on the stool? We located a single bullet hole in Dr. Drake's back with no apparent exit wound. Exactly. So that shot was in him and stayed in him, right? And if he wasn't shot through the window, then that would be 2 shots. Now, I have people that came forward. Boundary County, the people there are notorious for listening to their scanners. And over the scanner said that they were looking for a man dressed in, all black, whatever Isach Funderberg had given the description. And that went out over the pagers and the scanners. And that's actually what Mick Millett, the coroner, who Dan Moore was with, had heard, just like the rest of the citizens. And that was way before 726. Can't wait for that to come out. Ooh! Now, detectives obtained surveillance footage from 18 local businesses. Now, if you look at the Idaho 4 probable cause, they use the words numerous. So just so you know, they're saying 18 local businesses in the area around the homicide. Numerous lines of inquiry had been followed. Several persons of interest have been looked at and alibis established. I can prove this false. I can prove that there's false alibis out there. Our office has conducted over 200 interviews during the course of this investigation to date. Who gives a fuck? That doesn't make your shit more, but that's what they think. We've exhausted all of this. Trust me, we've gone through all of our stuff. Well, this just makes you look that much more inept. And I love it. And I love it. I can't feel my face when I'm with you. Truth and transparency. Thoughts on if fight struggle shot on ground, but Drake was able to make it back inside, and whoever shot him again missed inside shot going out window. Drake collapsed. Yeah, all of that. I look at it this way. I don't need to prove what happened. I can prove what didn't happen. So, and by proving what didn't happen, it takes Jennifer Drake's story, this complete fucking farce that you can prove scientifically didn't happen, and nor at the time that she claims it happened. So when you have that trifecta right there, you're proving Jennifer Drake as a liar, and the jury then will see that she's a liar, right? So the question is why would you lie? Remember what they say? Only guilty people lie. Brian Drake couldn't have possibly said that he was shot through the window if he was not shot through the window, right? Why would Brian Drake say that? Also, I personally don't believe that dead men talk. So, also, I know that dead men can't walk. And when you're putting the fact of Jennifer Drake being contacted by law enforcement at 7:44, and during her police interviews, what she said took place on that phone call, she spoke a little too much, and I caught it, and that'll come out too, because based on the actual timeline of stuff, at 7:44, she's claiming that they called me and they want to know that medics were there, and that they need to know what Brian's they need to know Brian's cell phone numbers. And she's like, I didn't understand. It was so odd. Why do they need to know this if they're there? Brian can just tell them. Why are they asking me? Well, this is their way. This proves the theory that I had from the digital evidence of the fact that the phone was outside, and that it was lost in a struggle out there. And then they couldn't find it. But if we're able to call it, then it would ring, and we could then find it and then walk it back in. Okay. But the giveaway there, that medics are there. The medics weren't there at 7:44. Nobody on that side could tell her that. She said the medics were there. The medics don't get in anywhere near Brian. They don't even find Brian until after 7:54. Medics don't get in there until 8:03. So the phone conversation and what you say that it consists of at 7:44, you're talking to the Boundary County, and that could also be Dave McClellan. That could be a lot of people, and that's who was in on this. Okay, so I've never said that Jennifer Drake pulled the trigger. I never said that ever once. Ever once on this channel. Responsible for his demise? Absolutely, I've said that on this channel. Because I think I can prove it. Because if your husband was not shot through a window, when the evidence comes out, and that can be proven as scientific, as well as with the autopsy, when it all just goes together, then Brian Drake wouldn't have told you that. And then when you can prove that all these other eyewitnesses are showing that the time of the crime was way before 7:26, then what the fuck did you talk to, and who did you talk to from 7:17 for 9 minutes and 15 seconds until 7:26? Huh? That makes you look like a sick puppy. That makes you look really, really sick. Also, with Eldora Gatchel walking and being on the camera at 7:18, which is consistent with Eldora or Caleb Koko-Nazara being the one to being able to press Brian's phone to call Jennifer Drake, her phone, and then walking out the door, getting in the car, and then leaving. They had time to do that because their vehicle is not seen on Columbia Bank camera until 7:18 and some seconds. Enough time to get from Brian Drake's office to Columbia Bank camera. But the crazy part is when ISP hears that Jennifer Drake claims that she called 911 from her cell phone and there's no call. And then you get the Cellbrite report back and it shows that there was no call. And then you're looking at all of this as a whole. That isn't it pretty convenient that Jennifer Drake's the one that's the only person that's telling you that this crime happened at that time. The only person. And Eldora Gatchel slips up too. She said that she was just with Brian 15 minutes before he got shot. That would put the shots as? Like, it's just wow, man. It's just, how would Eldora Gatchel know that she was the last patient? Okay, Brian sees patients all the time late. Also, Eldora Gatchel, you're going to have to explain why the kitty ain't right. If you paid Brian and you paid by card, then your card would have been rung through. And so we'll see if that's there. But number two, if you paid by cash, then when I say why is the kitty light? Well, everybody that visited Brian Drake that day was asked how they paid, card or cash. So at the end of the day, there was $600 there in cash. There was $1,250 that was supposed to be there. So when you compare how much was wrong through credit cards, and then you have the cash that has to equal your $1,250. So I have this toe tagged every which way. This is a very simple investigation. So if you guys don't believe that police are corrupt, then I'm just going to show you that this is the result of inept ability, inept work, and this is who's doing the Idaho 4 case. So any way you want to slice and dice it, it's right here. And then how they got onto Dr. Moore. Well, I believe that this was always designed to go after a wealthy person, a wealthy doctor, and this was always designed to be a 2-hit winner. You're going to win with the life insurance, okay? But if we can't go and blame this on a transient poor person because there's no money to be had in a wrongful death, okay? But if we go after somebody that we know or we think has a bunch of money, okay, and we could probably get them to settle, things like that. We won't ruin their life completely. We'll keep this all hush hush. We won't, we want this. It's like what my dad always said? If you want to bet on a basketball game or a football game, you don't go and bet on games that are hyped up in the media. You have to stay away from those games. And this was a big thing with gambling back in the 80s, they said, because bookies couldn't fix these games. Referees couldn't be bought. Players couldn't be bought. But you want to bet, if you want to win, you're trying to bet games that are off the radar because things can be done and off the radar. And there's not like this limelight on it. This is no different. There was no media presence in this. Okay. No media. There was no press conference. You understand that? There was not a press conference when this happened, and there was not a press conference when they got their killer. Okay. They wanted this to be, so hush hush. Why? Because they're riding on the radar. They need this to ride under the radar because it is so corrupt, because there is many working parts. But no, not everybody can be involved. You just need a couple of the right people. You need a prosecutor, you need a judge, and you need a cop. You're fine. So again, in numerous lines of inquiries, our offices had. Then the next part that they go to is our offices conducted Dr. Dan Moore and the gas leak. In late April or early May, I learned Dr. Daniel Moore, another chiropractor in Bonners Ferry, had experienced a gas leak at his office. Well, I can't wait for you to explain how you learned about this. Okay. Dr. Moore owns and operates Moore Chiropractic, which is located. Dr. Moore's office is located approximately 500 feet. That is so not true. It's way more than 500 feet. Dr. Moore's office is located directly north of the A-frame building. Remember, this is Isach Funderberg's A-frame. The gas leak event occurred on Sunday, March 15th, 3 days after Dr. Drake was murdered. Dr. Moore had originally been contacted on March 24, 2020, ironically enough, not recorded, by detectives Alderson and Lehman. Oh, goody. That conversation was not recorded. Detective Alderson and I, you guys, they were recording everybody. Why wouldn't you record this guy? Detective Alderson and I re-interviewed Dr. Moore in his office on May 6th, the same day that they did all of that canvassing when were getting the cars, all the cars. So when ISP Van Leeuwen realized that Prosser was there and Gary Tolson, they were I'm sorry, that Prosser was looking at the cameras and wanted to go and take surveying that area and writing down all of the cars that they saw and all these who they belonged to, and took the pictures and all that. That was on that same day, just so you guys know. This interview was recorded and transcribed. Dr. Moore said his Verizon mobile is this. He also said that this was this. The number for McMillette was this, and da-da-da-da-da. Dr. Moore advised that he had gone alone to his office on Sunday, March 15, 2020, for the purpose of changing a furnace filter on his gas-fired furnace located in the basement of the building. He said he was overcome by a gas leak and became unconscious. He said he did not notice the odor from the gas because he has anosmia. He said anosmia is as if it was a common knowledge what anosmia is. After looking it up, he said he also broke it down for you that he had his nose cauterized, you fucking idiot, you liar. Okay? You guys, who writes all of this shit that has nothing to do with something in a probable cause? So it's like, look at damn Brian Kohlberger's probable cause. There's so much shit in there that has nothing to fucking do with it. I mean, but this takes the cake. This is what's great. Dr. Moore further stated that some of the ladies who worked in his office had been complaining of headaches. There is an interview. They didn't even go. Don't you think after he would have said that to you that you would have interviewed? Okay, after Dr. Moore tells you that there's been ladies that have been complaining of headaches that worked in there the previous week, wouldn't you go and interview them, Van Leeuwen, after May 6th? They didn't interview any of these ladies. What the fuck? You want to prove this guy's a liar? Go interview the people. There is not. You said that you performed 200 interviews. Of those 200 interviews, when was it that you interviewed anybody that has to do with Dr. Moore's office? Oh, that came in August or September or November of after his arrest? Yeah, after he was arrested. So you didn't interview anybody to do with Dr. Moore's office prior to his arrest? Nope. So they couldn't tell you if he was lying or not, right? Yeah, no, I didn't see the need to do that. Like, what the fuck? And I love it. After the interview was over, I asked to see the location of the gas leak. Dr. Moore said he did not know who killed Dr. Drake and that he did not have anything to do with it. Dr. Moore said he did not even know Dr. Drake and had never met him. Dr. Moore said he had never heard anything negative about Dr. Drake and did not know who would want to hurt him. Dr. Moore said Dr. Drake practiced a different type of care. When asked about ownership of firearms, Dr. Moore said he was not really a fan of guns since my dad was murdered when I was 3. He doesn't even say, man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Okay. I later obtained a copy of the firearms transfer paperwork from the North 40 showing he purchased a Ruger LCP 380 on December 24th, 2015. Dr. Moore called me the next day and said, hey, I found that gun. Would you like me to bring it in? It's a Ruger LCP. It's a 308 and it is a clip. He doesn't know shit about guns, and that's how he described it. And Van Leuven knew that and wrote that in a report. So he said, oh yeah, this guy knows nothing about guns as he's calling it. It's a 380. And Dr. Moore says, it's a Ruger LCP. I think it's a 308 and it's a clip. He said he would leave it at the front desk if he wanted to come by and look at it. Knowing the murder weapon was not a Ruger LCP, we did not follow up with the inspection of that firearm. He also offered, hey, do you want this 22 that I bought for my wife, I guess, for protection? You can have that too. Moore said he was at Mick's house the night of the murder, but he could not be sure of the times. I asked him if he was there at 7 p.m., and he said he didn't know because he later became ill with kidney stones and had diarrhea and left Mick's house. Why would you ask if he was there at 7? This is where I caught little Van Leuven boy. Why did you ask him, Van Leuven Poovy, where he was at 7 when the murder was at 7:26? Is it because you knew actually that the murder was at more like 7? So you had to ask him about that? Did you have a Freudian slip, you fucker? That's priceless. Where are you at 7? I wonder why you asked him that. He's like, I don't know. What you guys are at? You're asking me 2 months later. I don't know where I was. Or I know where I was at, but I don't know what exact times. Moore said he was with Mick when the call came in about the shooting. Yeah, the pager. He said, yeah, I had come and just gotten some anti-diarrhea stuff, and I'm going to go home. And I think he was there until 4 a.m. trying to take care of the situation. Dr. Moore told me his telephone number was this. This is consistent with the records. So after that interview, then Van Leuven, instead of actually interviewing Isach Funderberg, a liar to you, you continue on with a prominent doctor versus going and identifying these lies that came from this little snot-nosed fucking ginger fucking drug dealer Isach Funderberg. Have you lost yourself, Van Leuven? Oh, I know. Van Leuven, I get it. There ain't no money in Isach Funderberg or his family, right? Ain't no money to be had there. Instead, no. We're going to go and talk to the fire chief. So they don't record what Moore said the first time. Then later on May 6th, they talked to the fire chief, Dave Winey, about responding to the gas leak. They don't record that either. And then they go ahead and they can just quote this chief however they want, which I called the chief. He has not yet returned my phone call. Little puss platter. Chief Winey said that the fitting was just finger tight. He thought it was very odd and never seen that before in his experience. Wow. Then you totally misrepresent what Brian Scrimshire said. Given the nature of the leak in this case, it was Scrimshire's opinion that the gas fitting was intentionally loosened. Scrimshire further stated that it was not reasonable that a person who would suffer a headache from a gas leak and not notice the odor. Look at you, sick son of a bitch. You didn't tell Scrimshire, or actually you did. You said, well, if he can't smell, well, and he's like, well, I never interviewed him, so I don't know. But yeah, if he can't smell anything, then you would just suffer a headache without smelling it because you can't smell. So when you want to talk about how ISP does their little, look at this lies. Misleading the tribunal, baby. Oh, God. And then here, patients of doctors Moore and Drake. Remember I told you there was that SOI number 1? Look at this, you guys. Oh my God. This is the 70 or 80-year-old woman that was interviewed. On May 19th, we interviewed a source of information who had been a patient of Dr. Moore and later Dr. Drake. This is that old woman I reported having being seen. Like, this is wild. He put this in the fucking, he said, this is such a, like, you want me to take this leap? Yeah, you took it all the way to a probable cause affidavit. You are sick. After Dr. Drake came to town, SOI1 started to see him and was very happy with the care. SOI1 said other members of the community had left Dr. Moore and became patients of Dr. Drake. But you didn't say, but none of these people were identified. When you asked her, she's like, well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have any. SOI said Dr. Drake's patients was his practice was very busy. And he was seeing patients not just locally, but also some who drove from Montana to see him. SOI1 said patients that saw Dr. Drake commented favorably about Dr. Drake. Who gives a flying fuck? SO1 said that in the spring of 2019, Dr. Drake had appeared upset, and when asked what was wrong, he said, he doesn't want me up here, or they don't want me up here. The interview was recorded and transcribed. However, this recording is being held back due to protect the identity of SOI1 until such as the court orders the identity. God. You guys, guess what I can prove? You want to know why Dr. Drake said that people didn't want him up here anymore? The cops were watching him. Okay? I have his drug dealer / steroid user and them texting each other. And then the steroid guy who's supposed to put the pills and all this stuff in Drake's car in the spring of 2019. Says, oh my God, dude, I can't leave anything there. I can't put on any. Dude, there's a cop sitting at your car. There's a cop sitting right next to your car. Spring of 2019. The only people that didn't want Drake in that town is his wifey poo and possibly the popo. So that works out perfectly for my investigation. Dr. Drake's patient files have been seized as evidence pursuant to a search warrant. A review of Dr. Drake's patient intake files shows over 30 of his patients had seen Dr. Moore in the past. You guys, these are patients that saw Dr. Moore back in like 2014, 2013, 2012, 2015. Okay. And then we're talking about 2020. Wait, Lana, say that again. Yeah, you heard. We're talking about patients that had seen Moore anywhere between 15 to 3 years, 5 years, and prior. And with the exception of, I think, maybe one or two, and it was that they had just started seeing Dr. Drake. I don't know how they're defining that Dr. Drake has a busy / financially successful business. I define success in this type of a field is money. That's the only way that you can describe it if you're successful, and unfortunately in the world. But I think it should matter though if you're helping and healing people. But in terms of, success, you got to talk about money. So that's going to be nothing but a complete fucking blow up in court comparing those two people with their money. Because Jennifer Drake needs to run for the hills. The IRS might be calling. They were hiding a ton of money from, like, a shit ton of money was not being reported to the IRS. So that's just facts. That's in the reporting of the taxes. I mean, how you can think that you're successful in claiming only $30,000. I don't know how you could take care of a family of fucking 6 on 30 grand. So if you guys know how, let me know. What else do we have here? Just still sticking over here on this gas leak. Okay. You guys, they're just, Van Leuven is just talking about this goddamn gas leak still. I asked Mick if Dr. Moore thought that what was making him sick was a gas leak. He said no. He said Dr. Moore had contracted a disease after going on an underground raft trip in Belize. I'm sorry. I gotta laugh today. I asked Vlad if he thought Dr. Moore attempted to commit suicide due to feelings of guilt over murdering Dr. Drake. No, he said. What said if Dr. Moore had problems with Dr. Drake? He doesn't say that he's the least suicidal person that I know of. Why doesn't he say that he is the least suicidal? That's what he said in his interview. What said he didn't think Dr. Moore had ever met Drake, but advised that Dr. Moore had a very busy practice and did not need patients. Oh my God, I'm gonna laugh. Okay. Millette said that Dr. Moore was with him during the time of the shooting. I know this. Like, hello. He has an alibi. Millette said Dr. Moore was with him during the time of the shooting. Millette said Dr. Moore arrived at his house no later than 6:15. And that's correct. And did not leave until after he heard about the shooting on his pager. Okay. Millette said that's why he asked him where he was at 7. Millette said that he was very sure about the time. Millette said that Dr. Moore did not leave his home until around 8:30 or so because Dr. Moore wasn't feeling good. He came back to Millette's house 15 to 20 minutes later, asking for some Imodium, and then head home. What he's leaving out here is that he went up to his office. Okay, he's leaving that out. Okay. That's why he came back to his house 15, 20 minutes later, but it wasn't that long. Okay. Now, later and so this is what's relevant for me. If we move the time of the crime up to 7 o'clock, okay, Dr. Moore's truck movements from any time after 7 o'clock to include the pager had already come through. And that's when he said after he heard that, that's when he's like, I don't feel good. I'm going to go up to my office and see if I have anything there. He didn't want to take a shit in his friend's house, and his office is right up there. So like, you have some people that are like that. Everybody knows that. You don't want to, whatever. But the moral of the story is that none of your little PowerPoint presentation means a goddamn thing, because the time of the crime is not 7:26. So all of this effort that you put into this stupid, pathetic, absolutely grotesque PowerPoint and this bullshit here, okay, it revolves around the wrong time of the crime. And the jury is going to see this. And the jury is going to laugh, because none of this matters. Because even if it is his truck, if it isn't his truck, this mother man is dead. He is a goner. This man is already dead. And let me break it down to you. If you're going to then claim that this is Dr. Moore driving all over in his truck, and all the eyewitnesses can or talking about the murder that has to be between 7 to 7:15, and you're physically putting this man driving in a vehicle at that time, if you have a decent lawyer, will be showing all of this. So either way you look at it, you could say it is Moore's truck, it isn't Moore's truck, it is Dr. Moore driving around. Again, this only helps Dr. Moore. Like, period. End of story. Because the shit that you didn't do, and you let a 19-year-old lie to you, okay, and that you thought, hey, we got to bury this because if we want to go after some rich motherfuckers so we can get some more money, you know, all the wrongful death times, the 4 times, you can get up to 4 times whatever it is that they're giving out now for economic whatever. So you're looking at, I don't know. You can't go after poor people and make money. You got to go after rich people if you want to get the double dip fest fuck. And so this shit, let me show you what it means to me and what's going to mean to the jury. It's that bad. But you know what's awesome is that you're going to use it, Van Leuven, because you're going to get up there and you're going to talk all about this crazy ass shit. And I'm going to sit and wait and just watch this get completely shredded. Completely shredded. Oh, damn, man. But let's go back to some more laughs. This man has a fucking alibi. It's the coroner who he was with when the page went out, which means the page goes out after it was announced over from the Boundary County dispatch because of Isaac's call. And what I can prove is that shit was way before 729. Way. Just go get Isach Funderberg's phone records. See what time the motherfucker called 911. Why did nobody go and do that? Why did Leslie Lehman bury it? Well, because guess why? Because it would show that that's not when he called 911. I mean, this is just, to me, this is second grade work. It's just easy. Later in the interview, I pressed him a lot about giving Dr. Moore an alibi. Like, I cannot believe that, and this is when I was like, this dude just can't be that dumb. Does he truly believe that Moore did this? Because then I think every investigation that involved this man needs to come back on the chopping block. Look at this. Stuff, don't write that stuff. That's just weird. You'll be blocked, honey. Very quick. A warning. During the course of the investigation, my office has reviewed. He's saying my office, not him. My office. Would that be Leslie? Has reviewed security camera footage obtained from the numerous local businesses. Not all the timestamps are accurate. Oh, snap. Some are off by 1 or 3 hours exactly. One is off by a few minutes. And most are right on. The correct time on any camera was established by viewing common events recorded by more than one camera, such as a unique vehicle observed driving through the area, you know? The footage in some of the clips cannot individually be used to identify Dr. Moore's Tundra. However, by linking one video to the next in sequence, each video validates the others. Now think about this. Think about this is the circumstantial evidence that they have against Dr. Moore. And here it is. After analyzing footage from 8 of those 18 businesses, we observed Dr. Moore's truck driving from the direction of his residence to Mick Millet's residence. We later observed the truck leaving Millet's house just prior to the shooting. So again, see, prior to the shooting. So this is all surrounded by the shooting time of 7:26. Just prior to the shooting, no, it's 7:13, but whatever. The truck is then seen circling the area. So remember in the Idaho 4 case, I said, what are they determining the time of the crime for the Idaho 4 case? Because that's all that I'm going to try to do with the Idaho 4 case is show and prove that they're notorious for purposefully allowing the wrong time of the crime to stand to fit their narrative. Oh, can you grab my phone? The truck is then seen circling the area where the shooting occurs 2 times, including driving down the area between the 2 buildings directly outside the window where the shooting occurs, and then stopping for several seconds. Dr. Moore's truck then drives north on Main Street from Dr. Drake's office and parks at Dr. Moore's office. After parking, the taillights flashed in a manner consistent with Dr. Moore locking his truck with a keyless remote. A human figure is then seen walking from the direction of Dr. Moore's office toward Dr. Drake's office 1.5 minutes before the shooting occurs. As previously established, the shooting occurs at 7:26 p.m. A human figure is then seen walking and then running back from the area of Dr. Drake's office towards Dr. Moore's office 1.5 minutes after the shooting. 7:26 is not the shooting, and it was only established via Jennifer Drake saying that. But, woo. Stephanie. I'm kidding. Stephanie, you're fired. Steph, I'm kidding. A human figure is unseen. Okay. The lights on the back of Dr. Moore's truck again flash in a manner consistent with Dr. Moore unlocking his truck using his keyless entry. And this would be then the 30 seconds that they're missing. Ready? Right here is after this. Oh, wait, where's it at? Oh, where's this? Flash and half. Okay, yeah, right here. So let me get this straight, Van Leuven. Based on your time, this thing, based on this shit right here. I went ahead and I went over that again. Okay. You know what I thought was interesting about your little Shih Tzu here that you didn't think was this interesting? But normally when you get out of a vehicle, the first thing that you do is you lock the vehicle. So did you not think it was at all fucking odd that Dr. Moore's truck, based on your video and the little flashing of the lights, did you not think that it was at all interesting and odd that here... I'll put the bottom back down. Yeah, there it is. That'll work. Did you not think that it was at all odd that Dr. Moore's truck would flash with the lights 5 minutes after? Meaning if he got out of his truck and he went over and did whatever, that Dr. Moore then would, as soon as he got out of his truck, that he would lock the truck right when he got out of it. Now, you're claiming that all of this is so close together. Isn't it possible that Dr. Moore, in fact, was down at Mick Millet's house. And when he actually stepped out of Mick Millet's house, if he had his keys on him to see his truck was there, and he went ahead and hit the, the keys to see if his truck was there, then in there they flashed, that he'd then be able to see that his truck was there. So the first thing that I would ask you is, did you ever go and see if you took the keys and had the truck parked at the office, could Dr. Moore turn his and be able to trigger his truck from Mick's driveway? Did you ever check that? I'm just curious. Now, the next thing is in this lovely shit show that you have. Right here, you said that a human figure is then seen walking and then running back from the area of Dr. Drake's office towards Dr. Moore's office 1.5 minutes after the shooting. Okay. Did it ever occur to you as to why the 30 seconds after Dr. Moore flashes his truck to turn it on or to unlock it, did it ever occur to you, you have all this footage, there's nothing missing, but then the 30 seconds that are missing is right after the flashing of the truck, of the lights, right after that. Now, it would really chap your story if you actually saw Dr. Moore walking in a way that wasn't from Drake's office, but possibly from Mick Millet's house, which would be from the opposite way. Because I can't for the life of me understand how the most critical 30 seconds to prove your fucking case is missing. And how every juror is going to see that. And not only are they going to see that, but then when you mix it with, wait a second, what camera is this again? What camera is this? Oh, wait a second. This is Leslie Lehman's Liberty camera. This is the 30 seconds. And so you're going to sit here and tell me that Leslie Lehman, who went and said that there was camera being recorded over is on this is all happening from the same camera that Leslie Lehman tried to lie about, and that the most pertinent times is being recorded over. This also just so happens that, hey, we were already able to obtain this video, but we need to delete these 30 seconds. That doesn't, you don't think that, how you think the jury is going to feel about that? I can't possibly imagine sitting on the jury and you're going to have to sit here and explain that you are only missing 30 seconds of a camera that is so freaking important to your version of events, because that camera would clearly show Dr. Moore getting into his truck like you claim and leaving like you claim. But that would totally actually blow up your story if you let those 30 seconds roll and you didn't delete them. Because if you actually had those 30 seconds, it would actually show a completely different picture, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that? That's just so interesting to me that you don't mention any of that in your probable cause. That the 30 seconds that you're missing is all of what you're trying to say happens. His truck is then seen driving back toward Mick Millet's house 300 feet away after that whole flashing of the lights. After the flashing of the lights, no, we're missing the 30 seconds of the video because it would prove where Dr. Moore truly came from or who got in that vehicle. You say his truck is then seen driving back toward Mick Millet's house. Eyewitness Funderberg's vehicle can be seen driving on north. You knew that that was not Isach Funderberg's vehicle, and you put it in the probable cause. You took it from this report that you knew was not true, because Isach Funderberg took a phone call with Leslie. Eyewitness Isach Funderberg's vehicle can be seen driving north on Hillside Alley before doing a U-turn on Harrison Street next to Dr. Moore's office. After 5 minutes, Dr. Moore's truck is then seen leaving Millette's house and leaving and going home. But that's, you never showed Isach Funderberg that camera to say, hey, is this your vehicle? Why would you never show that to him? It's not his vehicle. You want to know how we all know that it's not his vehicle? Because he says that he was at Super 1 and he was coming back from Super 1 and then turned in and had his conversation with Stephen Hartman. You knew all of this. You knew that none of this was true. That's not Isach Funderberg. You were beginning to survey Dr. Moore beginning in June. But more importantly, it's my belief that you guys had Dan Moore on the radar to frame the whole entire time. And this is all absolutely fucking sickening. So, but right here, guys, this car and this was the guy that was driving it, and he was hit by a train, or jumped in front of it, whatever they want to say, November 26, 2021. And then Tevis Hall, prosecutor, dead on the side of the road. So everyone's just dropping down like flies around there. So thank you. I just read a poorly written article that made it sound different. Oh yeah, that's all they did. This is ridiculous. But this is ISP, and I hope the truth comes out, and I hope that people start paying attention to the Idaho 4 case, because this is the same people that did that. Did this case, did that case. Until next time, guys, be careful. Be safe.